All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to September 19th Town Council meeting. If you'd all rise for a salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you'd all stay standing for a moment of silence for the men and women serving us home and abroad. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, so we have a pretty tight agenda. We're missing one counselor who should be along, I would say, momentarily.
He's out in the parking lot.
Huh?
He's outside.
He is outside. Okay, so first on the meeting schedule tonight during public comment was we have dispatch committee candidate interviews. So with that said, I'd like to get the meeting started with that, or we can go to public comment first. Why don't we do that? For public comment, does anyone have anything here that they want to bring before the council in public comment that's not already on the meeting schedule? Okay, thank you. Okay, so tonight we are interviewing, if you would, a list of candidates that have graciously come forward to represent the town in a capacity of a safety committee that we're putting together, and that's to evaluate the dispatch service over at the police station and at the fire station. And basically they're going to have three choices to make: either leave it the same, maybe combine it, the two entities together, or look at an outside agency to fill it. So anyway, their mission, their task is to basically evaluate all that, what makes sense, what makes fiscal sense for the town, and then a decision will be made by that. They'll write a report, they'll give it to us, we'll go from there. So with that said, the first on the list we have tonight, and the lucky number is Arlene Sikorsky. If you're here, would you step right up to the microphone? And if you would just give your name and your address for us, for the record. Thank you.
Arlene Sochalski, 11 Victoria Drive, Londonderry.
All right, thank you. So Arlene, basically what we have done is we've invited the people here because we have a very lengthy list of candidates. We wanted to, some of the people I've probably seen faces as well as the rest of the council, and we would just like to meet you,
Okay.
give a little bit of background about yourself, doesn't have to be too lengthy, and just kind of give us an idea of why you're signing yourself up and what you'd like to see.
Okay. Well, I did bring my resume from when I was working. I updated it a little bit, so could I hand it to you? It gives my education.
That's fine, sure.
All right.
We might already have it. I'm not
No,
sure.
I did not.
Not yours? Okay.
No.
That's fine. If you don't mind, that's fine, if you want to give it to us.
I just found out when I came back.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. When I came back from the Cape, that this meeting was going on, so I only had time to
Actually, why don't you give me another one if you would?
Thank you.
pull
I'll
this
give this
out
to John.
and
Thank you.
Thank
do
you.
it by hand.
Okay, that's fine.
So I talked to the office here in Fishing sometimes. They told me we're going to do these interviews
Yes.
first, and then we probably need to.
All right, so if you would, why don't you just tell us a little about yourself?
Well, I'm a resident of Londonderry for the past 35 some odd years. I'm a retired registered nurse. I worked at Child Health Services in Manchester, New Hampshire for about 15 years. My husband, Matthew, was a representative to the state. He was chairman. That has nothing to do with me, though. I just put up with all of it.
You're a good wife, then.
Well, I was.
I have one of those, too.
Maddie died 2 years ago.
Oh,
So it's taken me that long to come out of my, well, I'm not really out of grieving yet, but I'm moving forward. And when I saw this in the paper, I thought it would be an excellent way to give back, because towards the end of his life, we had to call on the EMTs quite frequently. He'd fall out of the wheelchair, and I'd need help in getting him up. And they were wonderful. So if I can help in any way, I'd be glad to.
Okay. Well, any, the council have any questions?
Thanks for volunteering.
You're
Arlene.
welcome.
Is there anything in your mind that would prevent you from keeping an open mind as the discussion goes through, and as to how the outcome of this might take shape?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
I'm all set. Thanks for coming down, Arlene.
Oh, you're welcome.
No, I have no. Thank
So
you very
thank you.
much. Okay, Arlene, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll, I think, have something come out our next meeting. I think that's when we'll have the decision as far as the committee. Okay, next on the list is John Grennan. Are you here? Yes. How you doing, John?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
John Grennan, 14 Jewel Court.
Okay.
Same questions?
Same questions.
The primary reason I'm here is because I was down here for the Budget Committee hearings a few times, and I was vocal to the town council, so I'm trying to put my money where my mouth is and volunteer.
Attaboy.
Yeah, so I've accepted the challenge. So, want to volunteer for it. Newcomer to the town. I've been here about 3 years. Lieutenant with the Sheriff's Department in Boston for 19, and a paramedic for 20 down there also. So, interested in the subject. We've used the fire department services for one of my children. Couldn't be more impressed, and I want to help out. That's the gist of it.
Okay, that's cool. All right, let's start with Joe. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, some people have said this is a safety issue, some people have said it's a budget issue. How are you going to look at both?
I think you have to look at it both ways. I think you have to look at it from the point of view of a taxpayer, that it's a budget issue, and that there is a bottom line that you have to meet each year. And also look at it from the safety perspective as a subject matter practitioner will say. I think there's a lot to learn from the committee. I don't have all the answers. I have very few answers, but I think that the idea of looking at other departments and other municipalities to see how they do it, I think is probably the best way to find the safety end and then meet the budget end, pair them together, and come up with a solution that works for our bottom line, number one, and 1A or tied for number one for safety. So I think they dovetail together.
Thank you.
Tom?
No, I have no questions.
Tom?
John, thanks for volunteering. One question, do you feel confident you can maintain an open mind regardless of the potential outcome?
I do, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
John?
John, we've seen each other a few times, been very forthright. Appreciate you stepping up again, and thanks for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right. John, like I said, you said money more your mouth is. That's great. I'm glad you're out here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All right. Vincent Currow, I know I've seen you. Step right up, sir.
Vincent Currow, 103 High Range Road. Been a resident of Londonderry since 1987. Been a call firefighter on the department since 1991. Currently a part-time dispatcher as well for Londonderry Fire. Different volunteer events. I coordinate the Londonderry Child Passenger Safety Program and co-chairperson over at St. Jude of the Community Service Committee. So again, like John had said, they're putting your money where your mouth is. If you're vocal during the time, you got to step up when you guys need the help. So I'm here, and I hope that my position as a dispatcher doesn't interfere with your decision at all. I hope to bring the experience that I have learned over the past 2 years dispatching to the program, to the committee, and hopefully we can come up with a good idea as well where to go next.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Joe?
Just the fact that you're a dispatcher now, say that the committee feels that we should do away with dispatch in Londonderry. How could you keep yourself on a kind of even keel with that?
Well, we're going to have to look at both sides of the story. What are we going to do with, option A or option B, option C? We got to take a look at that, see where it's going to do money-wise. Again, we have to look out for the taxpayer. We got to keep the bottom line. But I also got to look in the fact that I know when that line rings and somebody says that, Reed Page Clark needs help, we know what that address is, and we're going to send the help there. So,
Interesting choice of candidates. Tom?
No, I have no questions.
Vinny, thanks for volunteering. Again, same question. You feel confident you can maintain an open mind regardless of the direction that the committee takes?
yes.
Thank you.
Vinny, we all know the technology exists to take, not only to combine centers, but probably to go take hundreds of centers into one center. So, with that in mind, you still sure this is something you want to get engaged in, because it could go that way?
Oh, absolutely, yep, absolutely. But if it goes that way, you have to make sure that the training and the skills are available to those people in order to provide the safety for the bottom cost that we can provide all the citizens, whether it be for Londonderry or another town, if we're looking at that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, the council's asked a lot of good questions, and the one thing, going back to your, you're already a dispatcher with the town. In all honesty, I think that provides a wealth of experience to the committee. You're a citizen, but yet you're also a part of that. So we have, out of all the candidates we're going to see tonight, there is a list, and a lot of them have background. And that's really what we need to have happen, because as a regular citizen who doesn't deal with that, it's not our livelihood. So we're not going to have all the answers. So putting a bunch of people that have a background with different parts of it is the way to go, and it'll also make the most sense in the end, I think. So
That's what I was hoping for when I signed up, so.
Yep, absolutely.
And I
So-
invite anybody, any shift that I'm on, you guys want to come over and sit with me, come on in anytime, so. It's
All right.
11 to 7, so.
Well, we might see you at the child thing, seeing that we got to go up there now. Make sure we're doing it right.
Take your personal shoes out of it, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, absolutely. Back to professional. All right, we have Robert McIntyre. Come on down. How you doing, Robert?
Good. Rob McIntyre, 103 Granite Street. Currently, I work for Shaw's Supermarkets as a loss prevention specialist. I deal a lot with Londonderry PD and also with a lot of the local PDs. I'm also employed part-time with Pelham Police Department as a crime analyst. I have a lot of experience working with cost-benefit analysis, call volume projects. I also did their annual report for the police department for 2010. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from New England College, and I'm actually currently pursuing my master's in crime analysis.
Excellent, okay. Questions from the council? We'll start with John.
Rob, thanks for the young age stepping up. It's nice to see the youth of the community here, and appreciate you coming down. It's nice to see that you're building a strong background around the whole criminal justice piece. I wish you good luck with it.
Thank you.
Thanks for volunteering, Rob. Anything that would shake your confidence in your ability to maintain an objective view going forward with
No.
this? Thank you.
Tom?
I have no questions.
Joe?
Besides the extensive background in loss prevention, what do you think you could add to the committee?
I have a lot of experience in working in statistics and looking at cost-benefit analysis, especially in the municipal sector. One of the larger projects that I worked on for Pelham at one point was a vehicle use analysis. It did a 7-year projection over 9 vehicles as to what scheme would be the best for the town as far as replacement, whether it was 2 cars, 3 cars every 3 years, 3 cars every year, no cars at any point. And it projected out and showed the town what would happen if they made one decision or if they went with the recommended decision.
One more question. Pelham Police Department, what kind of dispatch do they have?
Currently, they have a joint dispatch. They do police and fire.
Thank you.
Is that with only Pelham, or is there any other towns involved?
It's just Pelham.
Thanks.
Pelham's fire department is, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, is part volunteer. It's got a smaller full-time group, as I remember. I think I remember that from interviewing the chief when we hired our chief a few years ago. Is that still the case?
Yes.
So they don't have full-time, full fire?
We do have, I believe, it's just the chief and the command staff that are full-time down there.
Right, and I really don't have any questions. The council covered them, so we appreciate you coming forward. And good luck with your future endeavors. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, Ed Nolan. How you doing, sir?
Doing very well, thank you. Good evening.
Thank you.
Ed Nolan, I live at 25 St. Andrews Way. I had to correct my letter that I sent in. I said I lived in Londonderry for about 6 years. My wife made the correction as we were walking in here this evening, she said, "It's been 7 years this month." So you know who rules the roost in my house.
Full disclosure.
A little bit about myself. I've been in law enforcement for 42 years. Currently, I'm the chief of police for the town of North Reading in Massachusetts. Over my career, I've been have had the pleasure of serving on many committees at the state level and regional level. For example, I was a member of the Attorney General's Hate Crime Task Force for about 10 years. I've served on the Executive Office of Public Safety's Community Policing Committee and on the District Attorney's Project Alliance. Also, I've been involved in the startup of a school threat assessment response program for the northern Middlesex County and Essex County area of Massachusetts, where teams of police, school officials, and mental health professionals respond to schools in crisis. In addition to that, I was commissioned as, when I was the executive officer for the North Reading Police Department, to chair the implementation committee for the installation and management and running of the enhanced 911 system for the community of North Reading. As time evolved, I was appointed the co-chair of the North Reading Police Station Building Committee and served in that capacity. It was a long term of 15 years before we were able to provide sufficient planning and find sufficient funding to get that project off the ground, and it ended up with a very successful endeavor. As part of that, there was a new dispatch 911 center built within that new facility that brought in all new technology and so forth. And most recently, I've been appointed by my boss, the town administrator, to represent the town of North Reading in the Middlesex Regional Emergency Communication Council, where there's a collaborative of 7 communities that are looking to develop, study the feasibility and look for funding of a regionalized dispatch center. So I can bring to the committee a lot of years of varied experience working with very diverse individuals. I've been known as a problem solver, a facilitator, and I can bring that to this committee, and I would really enjoy working with this community to find solutions that the board, the council has presented.
North Reading has regionalized call center?
No, the police and fire do their own dispatching, but we've studied the problem over the years, and as a result of economic issues, it's always been kind of backburnered, but we have looked at it in earnest several times in my career as the executive officer and as a chief of police, combining dispatch for the town, meaning that we would dispatch for police, fire, EMS, and the Department of Public Works. In fact, the facility, when it was designed to create the infrastructure to be able to do that in the future.
How long ago did you combine the two?
We haven't combined yet.
The police and fire?
No.
Okay.
But the infrastructure is designed to handle that eventuality if it ever comes to fruition.
And that's what you're on this other committee for, right?
This other committee is studying something different. It's looking at a combined emergency communication center for 7 communities in and around North Reading. So they're looking at an independent site. It'd be a standalone facility that would handle all the emergency communications for those 7 communities.
And it'd be regionalized in your area, North Reading?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No, I don't have any questions.
Tom?
Well, thank you for stepping up. You know, I'm looking at your resume. It's quite impressive. You're Doctor of Philosophy of Criminal Justice. I don't know if you prefer to be called Dr. Nolan or
No,
Chief Nolan.
you can call me Ed.
Ed, all right. Touche.
Good for you.
Ed, is there anything that would shake your confidence in your ability to provide an open mind throughout this process?
No, and I must compliment the folks that I've seen come up here this evening. They're all in positions where they know that their jobs require them to be objective observers of fact and reporters of fact. And that's been a hallmark of my career, is having the ability to objectively look at facts and make appropriate decisions.
Thank you.
All set?
You good?
Is that really too bad? There's not enough information for me to read. So, you know, obviously, I don't have any questions because all the good ones were taken. But thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of the community, and thanks for your service.
You're welcome.
Oh, I just have a question. From your experience down in Massachusetts, what do you think has been the resistance to regionalization? Has it been technological or political?
In my honest opinion, I think it's turf. There are many communities, in fact, most communities, particularly in the eastern half of the state of Massachusetts, they've had police agencies, fire agencies going back well over 150 years, and it's a tough, it's tough to overcome those deep-seated traditions. But as we move forward into the future, you're beginning to see a trend coming from for the federal government, coming from state governments, where they're looking at funding regional operations, eliminating the challenges to fund regional operations versus funding the local 911 centers. And I'm seeing that in Massachusetts now. For example, all 911 dispatchers have to be EMD trained by July of 2012. And the grant money that's being provided to the single source, the PSAPs, Public Safety Answering Points, is not as generous as it is if you belong to a regional group. So the state Emergency Telecommunications Board in Massachusetts is making it very clear that they prefer regionalized operations. So in the future, you may see collaboratives like the one I'm working on now, just for survival purposes. If you want to keep receiving grant funding, you're going to have to move in a certain direction.
And the last question, the 7 towns that you've been dealing with here, they cross into Essex County as well as North Middlesex? Or?
No, the towns I'm on right now are all Middlesex County. They're all within probably, it's North Reading, Reading, Stoneham, Wakefield, Melrose, Malden, and Lynnfield. Actually, Lynnfield is in Essex County. However, you know, they're right on the border. So it's 6 Middlesex County communities and 1 Essex County community.
Thank you.
Well, all the questions have been answered, and I did see your resume. Like John said, it's very lengthy, pretty impressive. So thank you very much again for stepping forward. We appreciate it, and we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Donald Moskowitz, step right up, sir.
Don Moskowitz at 7 Tokenell Drive, and I've been a resident of Londonderry for 33 years. The reason I volunteered is because you needed volunteers. You asked for them, and I felt that I could provide some insight as far as conducting this particular study based on my background. I have a bachelor's degree in science from Penn State, an MBA from Babson College, and so I've done a lot of financial analyses in the past. I worked as an industrial engineer for quite a few years. We were involved with various labor efficiency projects, labor utilization projects, equipment utilization, and the design of systems, including communication systems. I was involved with the movement of a manufacturing plant from Massachusetts out to Missouri, and that involved a lot of communications work and a lot of study to be able to do that. I've been involved with project management for close to 25 years, and I own my own business for another 14 years. I've done a lot of work within the American Legion. I'm currently a state vice commander of the American Legion, and I was a past state treasurer of the American Legion. And I've done a lot of cost work and treasurer's work, financial work within the American Legion. I think I could benefit the study group with my expertise. But I do not have any criminal justice background or criminal background for that matter. And,
So far.
and
Wait till after tonight, Don. Chief?
the chief can attest to that, I think. I've been pretty good. I am a very objective person. I know most of you probably read my letters to the editor. I try to be.
You write for the?
Yeah, and I try to be as objective as possible in those letters, and so I do think I can exercise objectivity in this study.
All right, we'll start with Tom.
Thanks for volunteering, Don. Same question. Are you confident you can maintain an open mind throughout this process?
Absolutely.
Good, thank you.
John?
Don, we've done this dance a few different times. I'm good to go. Unless you have any questions for me.
No, I can't think of any.
I'm all set.
Just I'm interested, same question I asked somebody else, was safety versus budget. How do you look at those two aspects of the question there?
Well, I think we have to look at all the options here. And we mentioned, there's many options that were shown in the Londonderry Times, for instance, on what we have to evaluate. And the safety is important, but the fiscal side of it is important too. And the quality of the service is important. So I think you have to look at all aspects of the project and make sure that we will provide the best service possible for the least cost. And it will take a lot of analysis to do this. I think a lot of digging to do this. And I know some of the people that preceded me have tremendous background, and that will hopefully be utilized on the committee, along with the other people that are assigned to the committee too.
Right. Well, Don, I'm sure you will, I'm sure you'd be very objective about it. And you do have a lengthy business background, and that's very valuable in this too. So we appreciate you stepping forward. And like I said, we'll be discussing it and figuring out who's going to be on it soon. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next, let's see. Linda German.
Good evening.
Good evening. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Well, my husband and I have lived here for 17 years. We moved here from Western New York, the Rochester area, where I was a duly licensed New York State EMTD with a large, all-volunteer ambulance corps. Large, 120 persons, 3 rigs, all volunteers. And on a personal note, speaking of EMTs, in the last couple of years here, I have been served very well by the fire department's emergency medical team. Professionally, my career has covered 40 years in executive positions in corporate, retail, and political public relations, advertising, and newspaper. I'm also a lifelong volunteer. I've always believed in giving back to whatever community I happen to be in. I'm a New Hampshire Master Gardener and have led many of their public outreach programs. Longtime member and past president of the Wyndham Garden Club, and a veteran volunteer at the Sunshine Soup Kitchen, which I currently serve as chairman of the board of directors. I think square one in the committee's work would be to determine the full job description of a dispatcher. A lot of persons really don't have a good working knowledge of what a dispatcher does. In my past experience as an EMT, we often thought of dispatchers as our lifelines on occasion. They're not just saying, oh, we got a call, there's a fire at, or a heart attack case, chest pains at 3 Smith Street. They also have to know that maybe the bridge to Smith Street is out and it just went out last night and it's not on any formal maps, and get us there quickly, safely, and so forth. There are a lot of serious intricacies to being a dispatcher, which I think should be evaluated, again, as the gentleman earlier said, to maintain quality of service, along with maintaining a budget on a stable factor. I think we were asked what our contributions would be. I know I would bring fairness in hearing all sides. There has been a lot of newsprint about this subject, and there have been a lot of opinions. I think fairness in hearing everyone's opinion and weighing them along with statistical material, financial material, would be critical to the right solution. Do you have any questions of me? I don't think I told you where I live.
I was going to ask you.
Well, I came in sort of a, you know,
I know
with a
you
plain
said you
brown
lived here
bag.
17 years.
Yes, 8 Summer Drive.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I had a question. During your experience as an EMTD, did you work for a specific city, or was it a regional center?
It was a large township. We had our own dispatchers. As I said, we had 120 members, and it was an all-volunteer corps. There was a large all-volunteer fire department, which we worked in concert with, but we were totally separate and each had its own dispatch system.
So fire had fire and police had police?
Well, fire, police, and ambulance. There were 3 entities. We also mutual aided 4 contiguous townships that were smaller in their ambulance coverage. But it all emanated from a central 911 to our dispatcher in our base.
So as an EMTD, the only experience you've had is with a dispatch that had single, not generalized?
Right, it was all for ambulance.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
Tom? When you say large, was that in large area, or was it a
Well,
very
the
populous town?
Township was, it was east of Rochester, and it was probably geographically about the size of Londonderry, but about 34,000, 35,000 persons when we lived there. So more persons, but roughly the same geography.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, given your extensive gardening experience, I might find a more appropriate question for my blueberry bushes I'm having trouble with. But you seem to have, you've already answered the question I would have asked you about fairness, so I'll defer to my colleague on my left. Thank you for volunteering.
So Linda, specifically what town in eastern part of Rochester?
It was a township of Perrington.
So do you know where 14 Hanford Way is? Nettle
Vaguely.
Creek,
Yeah,
Martha Brown School?
yes. Did we ever take you to the hospital?
So for those that don't know that area, is Perrington is now 46,000 people.
Aha.
A lot of people call it Fairport.
I was corrected by an old biddy who lives in the village of Fairport, not to call it unless you lived in the village of Fairport.
Their town manager, the town supervisor, his name is Jim Smith, and he's been there for 20 years, and he gets elected.
Yes.
And it's probably one of the most progressive communities in the country. The way it actually works in Monroe County is everything comes into a central dispatch center. It's up in the city.
It's right near Gannett.
It's near Lytle Road or something
Right.
like that, right?
It's like Old Home Day.
Yeah, the old Gannett, right?
Yeah.
So what actually happens is that these are all volunteer groups, yet there is also no local police department. It's also done by the sheriff's department. Monroe County sheriffs usually are about 6'4", and I think it's like a criteria to get hired. And there's very few towns actually have town police departments. So all of these dispatch centers, it's actually, they've done a real good job of taking several hundred communities in western New York and moving them into county 911 centers with the capability of being dispatch centers depending on what you're able to provide for your town. What they've done there over the last 25 or 30 years is actually pretty progressive, and what exists today, I understand, is very progressive. So it's, but a lot of these times, these people aren't sitting down there at the ambulance corps. They call them up, and they have to go down, get the ambulance, and come and get you. So it's a different way of doing things. Would give us a very fresh outlook on how these things are done.
I will add that all EMTs in our corps, including this one, had to learn the rudimentary dispatching techniques in case there was a problem, an emergency, who knows what. And we had 24/7 coverage. Even though it was volunteer, we never missed a call. So, yes, that was very interesting to hear. Well, I'm glad we never did have to take you in. But
Thank God I haven't had to use the service yet. Although I might go for Canal Days again. So.
oh, okay, that would be good. That would be good.
Thank you for coming down. I appreciate the visit down. A place that I enjoyed living for a period of time. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Linda. We appreciate you coming down tonight. Okay, John Bellaquint, you'd come on up if you would. Actually, we can pull you right up. Yep, there we go. Perfect.
I'm going to go over there, but Margot set me up over here.
Is that good for you?
This is all right. Okay. I guess. Can you hear me all right?
All set.
Well, thanks for inviting me in.
Thanks for coming down.
I think Margot gave you a handful of little background papers that I sent over to her also. Because, as I said in there, I'm probably relatively unknown by most people here, except for those 873 who voted for me in the election for a town library.
I voted for you, John.
838? Thank you. I don't have any police, fire, or medical job-related experience that I can cite similar to the great folks that have come up here so far. So I think I need to tell you why I think I should be on this committee, or why I'd like to be on it. Okay. My time in Londonderry started in 1983. That followed 25 years of U.S. Army experience, the last 10 to 12 of which were in foreign military programs between the U.S. government and other governments. And as part of that, living in foreign countries, lived in Iran for 3 years, Egypt for 3 years, Korea for 5, you know. And living in those countries, of course, make you understand how important services are and knowing where you can go for what and how to coordinate things. That didn't come into play for me too much there, except it made me know that when I came back to the States, I wanted to find a place to live that had what I call all the right stuff. You know, we'd never been here on the East Coast, and we picked Londonderry over the other local communities. I came back and went to work for Raytheon down in Massachusetts. But I picked Londonderry because it had what I thought was all the right stuff. I liked the school system. I liked the fact that it had a nice public library. I liked the fact that what I saw about the fire and police was impressive to an outsider. And so from 83 to 89, we enjoyed our life here, put our two youngest through Londonderry High School, middle school and high school. And then my wife and I went overseas for a 2-year assignment, stayed for 19. We stayed in Londonderry, kept the home. One or more of our kids lived in it to take care of it until Joyce came back for her periodic 3-month sabbaticals when she wasn't teaching school over in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. And I spent those 19 years being the mayor of my company. I was the vice president and operations manager a company that consisted of about 102 families, and had, as I mentioned in the previous election bio, I had full responsibility for everything. I mean, everything. Their health care, making sure the police departments could communicate, all of their housing, all the medical, and the rest of it. It made me keenly aware of how important it was to have these things. You live in a foreign country where even if they have a 911 system, the person on the other end of the phone doesn't know how to speak English. And you've got someone who's having a stroke or something else, you really grab the importance of all that. So I look at that. I wanted to come back to Londonderry and live and jump into the community and get involved. Came back in '88 and came down with a spinal infection and was sidelined for 2.5 years. Learned a lot about the medical system around here and ambulance and things for the next 9 or 10 months after the infection. 5 hospitals and 4 rehab centers and emergency services called at the house and all that. So I became a user, not a giver as far as those things went. And I decided that as soon as I got back on my feet and could get some mobility, which I have now, I wanted to get back involved and get back to the town. And that's why I ran for election, the last election, and that's why I'm happy and proud to be on the library board of trustees. And that's why when I saw this coming up, I said, you know what, here's something that I can be involved in too. Because I've been following it. I watch the town hall meeting, or the town council meetings.
You poor guy.
TV. I do. I wrote Dottie notes, said, I watch this, just do it. And I can see what things are emotionally charged and which things aren't, went to the town meetings. I don't have a dog in a fight in terms of which way it goes. But I think I would say, in a little bit of contrast to an earlier response of someone's, I don't think it's equal finance or equal budget and equal safety. Based on my experience, I think safety has got the little edge. It's got to be health care or safety or response, or police care has got to be, citizen care has got to be more than 50-50 with cost. Maybe it's 51-49. But I think we owe that to the citizens. And I'm a citizen who understands that. So my skill set, I have a master's degree in human relations, a master's degree in management. I've managed multi-billion-dollar operations with companies. I know how to deal between governments. I know how to take spreadsheets, how to analyze things, how to make cost-benefit analysis. I mean, I had to do that. I wouldn't have survived all those years. I think I can bring those, along with my absolute, I think, very strong capabilities of not just negotiating, but reconciling, listening, being objective, being fair. I have those personal attributes, and I feel very strong about my ability to exercise them. So I've listened to Tom ask the question of everybody, do I think I could be honest and fair and objective? Absolutely, I could. Do I want to do this? Yes, if there's room for me on the board or on the council, the committee, whatever you're going to call it. Do I think that I have the same knowledge of police and fire and dispatch as the other folks? Absolutely not. But do I think I could play an important role in the committee? Absolutely yes. So that's it.
All right, thanks. John?
Hey, John, thanks for continuing to give back to the community, and thanks for coming down. Really appreciate it.
Tom?
Thanks for volunteering, John, again, and thanks for your service. You've preempted my question and answered it in advance, so thank you.
I guessed.
Tom?
John, if you weren't picked for this committee, would you still be involved with it? Because you do offer a lot of perspectives. There's a lot of people here. We only have four spots, but haven't heard anybody here that I couldn't put on the. So would you still be interested? Would you still come down? Would you still talk with the people that are on the committee and offer your input?
Yeah, I'd come bring coffee to them. No, seriously, if there were an alternate position or something like that. If that was the role, if that's how I could help, I would do that.
Even as a member, just as a public, would you be willing to do that?
Sure, but I want to be considered first for the other seat.
No, I got you.
No, we understand, yeah.
I'm not standing up volunteering second chair if I can, if I can have the vote.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you, John, for volunteering. Actually, I'm glad that you brought up budget and safety. Some of the information you're going to see out there as far as when you research it overwhelmingly will tell you that safety is one of the issues that we're kind of running after here, especially with regionalization and dispatch. You'll see that that's pretty clear a safety issue. But as you saw watching some of the town council meetings, it's a very pride-charged issue. So my question is, if it's all stacked against you and you're sitting there talking about safety, yet there's an overwhelmingly proud other group, 3, 4, 5, how do you turn them into listening to the facts?
Well, I believe you have to support the facts, as best you can. The old adage of the greatest good for the greatest number, I suppose, in some way would apply. If the money isn't there to get what you want, then what can you get for the money that's there is usually the way people approach it. But I would say, what is it that you want? What is it that you need? And find a way to get the money. You always step forward and say, we'll find the money someplace, we'll find a way. I think of all the things to find something for, public safety and public health. When I say safety, I mean fire and police. And with that, then medical response. I think you find a way to do that. Or if it's a matter of bells and whistles and nice to have things versus essential to have things. That's where you have to parse out what the actual desires are. And there's enough really experienced and well-founded folks that I've had come up in front of me. They know what those things are. But also, I think I can figure out a lot of them, too, given the material and the background. I can't make any specific recommendations now because, after all, I'm just watching from the sidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Did I answer your question or not?
Yeah, thank you. Well,
Okay, council asked the questions, they covered pretty much everything, and I know I've sat through some of the debates when we came down for the library position. I do appreciate your service and giving back.
I don't know if he's trying to ask a question or not.
Are you trying to ask a question, Mr. Clark? No? Okay. And thank you for coming forward, and we'll have a decision soon. One thing that I was just discussing with Councilor Dolan and Councilor Frida, I would have to the other councils, but they're at the far end. But we were just kind of thinking, one thing that we might have as a value would be probably to put a couple alternates on, if the council is agreeable to that, just so that there is as much involvement as possible and have as much opinion as we can, because it is a valuable thing, and there is a ton of information and a ton of things to share between the community to make sure that it is done right. And I think that was the biggest thing that some of the people that were circulating the petition wanted to do, was to make sure that we do it right. So, but thank you for coming down tonight.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it, John. Okay, Steve Chazen. Steve? Okay.
He's the other one. He couldn't come.
Oh, he couldn't come tonight? All right. I wasn't sure who the other one was. Okay, Kathy can't be here tonight. Bradley Osgood? How you doing?
Good evening.
Welcome.
Osgood, Forest Street, Londonderry, New Hampshire. Been in the town for 19 years. A little bit about myself. Work for the City of Concord Police Department. Been there for 22 and a half years. Educationally, I have a Master's in Business Administration, also a graduate of the FBI National Academy in Quantico. Currently, I'm assigned as the Deputy Chief in charge of administration. I've been doing that role for about 4 years now. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I operate a $10 million operating budget. I have a $1.6 million parking revenue budget. I have about 10 and a half years experience in management and leadership at the police department. responsible for capital improvement project identification, implementation, and project management. I have experience supervising our dispatch center. Currently have 8 dispatchers at the police department. In 2008, we embarked on a study ourselves to explore regionalization of police dispatch services. Being the budget guy at the police department, I was more interested at that point in what revenue we could make from it, because we were actually going to try to bring on other communities. We also met with the Merrimack County Sheriff, who runs a large regional center. That project died. There was not a lot of interest in other communities at that point, so we haven't really followed up on that recently. Being a person that's in charge of budgeting, especially since I've been doing it since 2007, I'm quite familiar with the issues in municipal budgeting. Not a good time for putting together budget plans. You seem to spend most of your time doing reduction models. Having worked in public safety for 22 years, I have a good understanding of dispatch centers and the financial issues, the staffing issues, operational efficiencies that go on. And that's about it.
All right, thanks. I'm sure we get some questions. John?
And Brad, obviously, you know what we're up against and everything, and appreciate you coming down and putting your name in. And I really don't have any questions around your qualifications. I think they speak for themselves, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for volunteering, Brad. The same question, you remain confident that you can maintain an open-minded position as the various options present themselves to the committee?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have no question.
During the times that you looked at this regionalization possibility, and you said you're a numbers guy, so what were some of the pros and cons that you come up with during your research?
I think well, from my point of view, we were looking at it as a revenue generator. We were going to take on additional communities. One of the cons, if you will, is our facility would not really accommodate too much more capacity. It's a structure built in 1980. We have room for possibly one more terminal. So bringing on an additional community or two would be a tight fit. One of the other things that I just recently, project that I'm finishing up on, is we actually created an off-site facility, a backup facility, because last summer we lost telephones at our building for about 3 days. So you really can't operate a dispatch facility without telephone communication. So we actually have a fully functional off-site facility right now. As far as additional pros, well, the additional downside is if you got multiple communities, if there's different operating systems or software systems, you try to integrate them all and you try to have everybody on the same system, it becomes difficult if they're not. So the infrastructure is a thing. It's financial. You have to look at it from that point of view. So that's one of the downsides. As far as a plus, I think that if you have a greater staff, a bigger facility with greater staff, you don't have as many operational inefficiencies. And you might have some cross-training that might be involved, and so there might be some room to improve your operation that way.
Okay, thank you.
I really don't have any other questions. Again, another candidate with excellent credentials. We appreciate you coming down, and we'll be getting a decision by the next meeting. We'll release that. But thank you for coming down.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate your service. Thanks.
Good evening.
You too. All right, we have two candidates left, Cindy Rice Connolly.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Cindy Rice Connolly, 373 Winding Pond Road. I've watched both departments, police and fire, grow from a good department when I moved here 33 plus years ago into great departments that they are now. I don't have any public safety background like most of the people that have spoken before me. And when this whole topic started, I was very much against going to a community or a joint dispatch service. However, the more I heard about it, the more I read about it, the more I talked to people, I thought, I don't know where I stand. We need to bring our taxes in town down. So that's a plus, but I don't know where I stand. And being on the committee, I think I could be objective by looking at both sides, getting information that is not in the press or what I've heard at town council meetings. And I'd like to serve the community in another form.
Thanks, Cindy. Questions for Cindy? John?
Hi, Cindy.
Hi, John.
Thanks for coming down. Thanks for, taking on more than you already take on. Very much appreciated, and hope everything's going well.
Thanks.
Hey, Cindy, thanks for stepping up.
Thanks, Tom.
As I mentioned to all the candidates, you do remain confident that you can maintain an open mind as this process
Because
unfolds?
I don't know where I stand, so
Let me also suggest to all the candidates, if I may, that it just occurred to me, we're conducting a workshop next Monday night to go through, as a single topic meeting, to go through in depth the tragedy that we encountered as a community with the fire this past year.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who are interested in this position, part of that analysis, I'm sure, will transcend through the actual dispatch of the department and the surrounding departments as that fire unfolded. And you may find it instructive and educational to either be here for that or catch it on the TV on a replay on the local cable access. I think it's bound to be very rich in information that we elicit from that discussion. So I would invite you, all the candidates, to tune in or to come on in.
I have no question. Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks for volunteering. I have no question.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
do have one question. You said that the decision would be made at the next meeting. I'm assuming that will be the next full board meeting, not the workshop next week. Is that correct?
The workshop is still a council meeting, and we'll have our announcement on who we pick for the committee.
Next week. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, and I think we have a late Brendan Burns. Are you here? I think we got you today, sir.
My name is Brendan Burns. I live at 4 Burlang Road. I'm employed with the Manchester Fire Department. I've been there for 16 years. I'm currently a lieutenant. I'm a line officer. I ride a fire truck every day. One of the things we did in our own department just recently was to overhaul our dispatch system. With a new administration in the department, that was one of his priorities, which is difficult. I know any department will tell you the hardest thing to do is evaluate yourself. In the fire service, we kind of have a saying, it's 200 years of tradition unimpeded by progress. It's hard to change, but we did, and at the end of that, now we actually operate with one less person than we used to. which was a surprise, and it was hard to sell that, but we did. Prior to working in Manchester, I was a volunteer in a neighboring community that implements a joint police fire dispatch. Obviously, we're solely fire in Manchester, but as part of our evaluation to overhaul our dispatch system, I did a lot of the research, into response times and statistics. Currently completing a college degree in public administration, and one of those, I've got a stack of research papers that I hope to use again someday, and this could be the opportunity. A lot of them are fire department related, organizationally related dispatch systems. I'm also an active staff instructor at the Fire Academy. One of the modules that I teach regularly is communications. So any of our dispatchers or firefighters that have been through there, odds are I may have taught communications to them. More importantly than all of those, I think, I'm a taxpayer and I'm a parent. I have 2 young daughters, soon to be a third. So obviously, safety is paramount to me and my family. But as a taxpayer, I know I want those services to be provided efficiently. But I think there's a fine line between doing something efficiently and doing it cheap. And I think we do a good job of that in town here. I don't think the sole idea of this committee should be to find the cheapest way to do something. I know the numbers sometimes when we look at the budgets jump out at you. A lot of those numbers are public safety related. But at the end of the day, I don't think we can put a price on public safety. And as long as we know we've turned every stone in those departments and tried to do things efficiently to get the return for that investment, I think it's a little easier to swallow.
Okay, what's that, Joe?
Knowing the type of dispatch that you have in Manchester and knowing the research that you went through, do you ever kind of find yourself saying, man, I wish I could have a bigger voice in this to try to switch the dispatch we have now?
The system that, obviously in Manchester, the call volume is quite high. I mean, we have 2 people handling, almost 19,000 calls. The police department has 2 people handling quadruple that. So the model that we use is the most efficient for us. Again, like was mentioned before, we don't have the facility to combine them. And in reality, I think there's some good information out there, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. Talking to other parents at the soccer field this weekend, I think the the stereotype of the dispatcher is that they're sitting behind a boom mic saying, car 54, where are you? I think when you talk about police and fire, I think talking on the radio is the only thing that they do the same. They're 2 distinct jobs. And those telecommunications specialists, as we like to call them now, not just a dispatcher, they're the first line of public service or public relations that anybody has in town when you walk into either of those facilities. So it's far more than talking on a radio, so to speak. And I think we do a good job in town of looking at those things, and I'd like to continue to help do that.
Just a thought, a contrast here. Manchester has 2 per.
We have 2 at night, 3 during the day.
Okay, and that's
generally.
2 per fire and 2 per police, right?
We have two for fire, dedicated solely. Sometimes a third during the day when the scheduling allows it, barring vacations or whatnot. The police department uses a little bit of a different system. They have call takers, people who are solely on the phone. They have people who are solely dispatching. There's people who are at the window taking public walk-ins, etc. They all do the same job. I believe they rotate them around or whatnot, but theirs is a little more divided than ours. So, but I believe theirs are maybe 3. I think there's like 2 call takers and 2 people on the radio, but don't quote me on that.
So just based on the research, I think you'd probably be surprised to realize that we have 1 in fire and 1 in
Sure.
police. So
Sure, and I've read. I know we mentioned the Hemlock Street fire. I've read that after incident report quite extensively, and I think we all it's been discussed, but I think staffing is a prime issue here. In the fire stations and on the fire, in the dispatch offices, and more importantly on the apparatus, I think are things that are important that we need to look at. But I think that's something we'll do.
thank you.
No, I have no questions, thanks.
Brendan, thanks for stepping up and volunteering, and thanks for your service as a firefighter.
Thank you.
Anything that would shake your confidence in your ability to ultimately be objective in the final decision as the committee arrives at it?
No, certainly not.
Thank you.
John?
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down tonight, Brendan.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Okay. Tom?
Mr. Chairman, I have a suggestion for the council to perhaps expedite the selection process and kind of an administrative solution / suggestion, and that is that you have 2 councilors to your left and 2 to your right, and we have 4 slots to fill. I would recommend that you direct the 4 of us to come back to you with a selection for each for one of the positions, and since there's likelihood we may end up picking the same person, that we give you a second choice, and from that, you fill out, as a chairman, you fill out the slate of the remaining 4 and perhaps pick a couple of alternates as well.
Okay. How's the council feel with that?
Yeah, I don't even see the reason why we couldn't do it in public. I mean, it's fine, either one, whichever one you want. We can have a vote on each.
There's not a reason, it's not a secrecy, it's just, I'm gonna need to sort through it all, and we're in a meeting.
No,
A little difficult.
That's fine, I think it's a good procedure.
So, John, you okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Al, you have a question?
Yes, Al Baldessar, 41 Hall Road. Quick question for you. I was going to sign up for this, and I backed down. And let me tell you why. Because ethically, or I should say conflict of interest, I signed a petition supporting to keep it in town. So I felt when this came out that I was going to be biased because I signed that petition. So that's the reason why I didn't sign up. So I'm hoping you take a look at that petition also when you make your decision, because, I mean, even as a state rep, if I endorse the legislation and move it forward and it comes to my committee, it's unethical for me to sit there at that committee and ask questions to everyone else that comes up for or against. Okay, so I want to just, hopefully, you take a look at that when you put your commission together, because I think if you sign that petition, it would be a conflict of interest to be on the commission. Just my opinion on that, on proper ethics.
Can I comment on that?
Well, I'll just...
Why are we going to bother? It's a non-binding petition.
Right.
Right? It wasn't a legal document, and the petition was more about, do you want it to go to Derry?
Right.
Okay? We really don't need to
Right.
address it.
And in all honesty, to what John's saying, this committee is, if you wanted to sign up for it, Al, we're not going to hold it against you. This is to get everybody's input into this. It doesn't matter if you have a bias. Hopefully, you're going to use common sense when you sit here and be able to make an educated decision on the facts that are before you. That's it.
I'm just bringing up problems.
No, I understand. I understand. But as far as this goes, I think it's a good thing, and to have everybody that has stepped forward tonight, it's a good idea. And there's a wealth of experience from everybody that stepped up tonight, so I think we're good. So I think that's pretty much it. You guys good with it? Any issue?
Everybody was asked if they had if they could make an independent decision. I think they all said yes.
Right, so I think we're good to move on there, so. Okay, I think that will do it. Thank you very much for everybody that came out tonight, and we'll hopefully have this, by the next meeting, everything should be all set.
So, Mr. Chairman, before we move out of public comment, if I could just make an introduction of a gentleman who came from the New Hampshire Fish and Game, and then we can move into public hearing.
Okay.
Working with Dave last week, I wasn't here. I have a lot of unanswered questions. We reached out to New Hampshire Fish and Game and asked Officer Jeff Pushy to be here tonight. If you could introduce yourself, that would be great. If you don't mind, just come on up and just introduce yourself, so that maybe he could shed some light on what goes on around the state and maybe give us a little direction. Asked him to come on down and just be present so that we could get some more information.
All right, so why don't you sit down, officer, if you would. All right, so public comment, we have nothing other than what we covered earlier. Anybody have anything different? Okay, moving on. All right, I need a motion to go into a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Chair votes affirmative, 5-0. Okay, officer, welcome, and thanks for coming down tonight.
No problem. My name is Jeff Pushy. I'm a conservation officer with New Hampshire Fish and Game in the Law Enforcement Division. Currently, I cover 12 towns from Nashua to Bow. So I see how a lot of these towns work with their conservation properties and all that. John asked me to come down tonight to bring my knowledge from that. Open to any questions that you guys might have with the issue that you've been discussing with the Musquash property. I understand you're thinking about possibly shutting it down to hunting and shooting and possibly doing that. So any questions that you guys might have from me, I'd be happy to address them.
All right, well, thanks for coming down. What this is tonight is ordinance 2011-07, which was continued from the last meeting. And Officer Pushy is here to answer some questions that or concerns that the other councilors, a couple of councilors had. So we've already read this into the meeting minutes. It's already, so we're bringing it back up to make a decision on it tonight. So we'll start it off with, you guys had some questions, so we'll let you guys start it, if you would.
All right, so if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead. So, officer, when I spoke to your sergeant, he referred me to you, and a lot of discussion around this is, and you and I discussed, from my point of view, hunting okay, gun odor and legal use okay, all good stuff and everything. Hunting, we're not looking to prohibit. Some people have brought up that this is a Second Amendment issue. I think you had a point of view on that. And I won't speak for you.
Okay. As far as a Second Amendment issue, I mean, you guys have every right to do what you want with your property. I mean, you can make an ordinance that doesn't allow guns on the property. I obviously not for that. I think it'd be a shame if you shut it down to hunting and other. It's a conservation property, but you guys do have that option to do that if that's what you choose to do. And there's no Second Amendment issue there. I mean, other towns have done that. They've shut their properties down to the use of firearms. I mean, obviously, you can't say they can't carry firearms on that property, but you can make an ordinance to shut it down to target practice or whatever you choose to do.
Okay, so Officer Pushy, one of the other things you had said to me is one of the first things you said to me without me even soliciting it is that this must be a pollution issue. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, mostly what happens when these issues come up is towns are having a huge problem with, it's not the hunters or the other people recreating on the property, it's people shooting and they're not picking up their spent shells, or they're shooting tires or shooting other objects and just leaving it there, and that's what people see, and that puts a bad taste in people's mouth, and they want to shut it down to target practicing and hunting and all that. That's what I've seen in the past, and why this issue is coming up is that it's not that there's a issue with safety or anything like that. It's that people don't want to see that garbage all over the property, and that's what brings the issue about. And they blame it on the people out there shooting because they hear the gunshots and they see the garbage left behind.
So, from your point of view and what you've seen and experienced is that Fish and Game is supportive of hunting, skeet shooting, practice shooting, learning how to use a firearm properly,
Correct.
and all those other pieces. What would you tell us to look out for? I mean, is it a type of thing where we have 1,000 acres and we should say only half of it should be for skeet shooting? I mean, I'm making stuff up because I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking you for your experiences.
My recommendation for that is, obviously, as I said, I don't want to see it shut down to people being able to use guns on the property or hunting on the property. The best way to handle it, I think, is to, like you said, section off a piece of the property, post it as a shooting range, allow people to go in there and shoot, make it a take-in, take-out facility. Obviously, it can be enforced if they're leaving litter there. Fish and Game can patrol it. The PD can patrol it. If people are leaving their crap there, they'll be issued fines. Whatever you guys choose to do, that's my best suggestion. Is you make a piece of property where target practicing can be done. Obviously, during the hunting season, people can hunt the property where they have been in the past. that's the best way to handle it, I think, is to section off a piece of the property, say target practicing is, I think that's the biggest issue with what brought this up, is that people are out there target practicing. It's not the hunters. People have hunted that property ever since you guys have owned it, as far as I know. And I've never had one complaint about hunting on the property in 3 years in this area. And I've actually never had a complaint about target practicing in the area either. I'm sure the PD may have, but I'm not aware of that. That's my best suggestion, would be to section off a piece of the property for target practicing, post that as such, so that people that are in there hiking and that aren't in there recreating with firearms know that that's what's going on in there, and that they stay away from that. That's how the Fish and Game clubs handle it. They have shooting ranges that they're posted, active shooting ranges, and you're known to stay out of it. I think that's what it ultimately boils down to, is a safety issue, and that people are worried about that what's going to happen. All the hunters in the state have had to go through a hunter safety education course. There's hunter ed instructors here that can tell you about that. They go through gun handling, hunting ethics, shooting ethics, all of that. So most of the people that are hunting have been through this class. Obviously, there are people that can go out there and buy a gun and go out and target practice. That's why I think if you make this regulated shooting range, those people will stay in that, and you can make it safe for everybody.
And the only other question, and I still haven't gotten an answer from this completely. I asked Dave, I don't know if Sue's looked into it further or anything else. I tried to socialize it a little bit with some other people. Is my current understanding is, and someone correct me if I don't understand this correctly, is that once this has been brought to our attention, our insurance carrier has told us that we could have a liability issue, yet we don't have a defined decision on that. That whether they would drop us or we would have to change our insurance or anything along those lines, depending on what we do here. And I haven't heard a clear answer to that yet. Yes, no, we don't know yet.
I haven't heard anything.
So those are really the only questions I have. I'm all for, doing it properly, following the New Hampshire Fish and Game rules. I have no other issue with it. I think the officer brings up a pretty reasonable idea. At least if people know where it's taking place, then they know that they should probably not go there, versus us posting the entire musquash and then people not knowing where it's happening. So I thought it was sort of interesting information that hopefully helps in this situation.
I think it would be an absolute shame to shut down 800 plus acres. And so it's one of the biggest chunks of woods in southern New Hampshire that people can still hunt and recreate. It's a big part of New Hampshire's history, is hunting and fishing in the outdoors, and I think that would be an absolute shame. The other things that I will add before I'm done, I know you guys probably want to wrap things up, just a couple things that I've seen in other towns, as far as we talked about the designated shooting area. Other things that I've seen is shooting and hunting only allowed from September. You could make a town ordinance. Shooting and hunting only allowed from September 1st to December 31st. That encompasses most of the hunting seasons, other than, you can hunt coyotes year-round in New Hampshire, but most people aren't hunting coyotes in the summertime and that. So I have seen that, where they only allow shooting and hunting from September 1st to December 31st. That way you can also post that so the public's aware, that the town residents are aware, and whoever else is using the property knows that people are out there hunting and people are out there shooting that time of year. I was talking with another officer, my sergeant, the other day. One thing he suggested that he's also seen is that only people with hunting license can shoot, or obviously they need a hunting license to hunt on the property, but they need to possess a hunting license to shoot on the property. That way they've been through the hunter ed courses, they've been through that training. That's another thing that he has seen, that towns have developed that ordinance. So those are just a few things I want to throw out there. It's up to you guys, I guess, what you want to do, but like I said, I think it would be an absolute shame to shut the whole property down to hunting and shooting. That's my 2 cents. So.
That's why we're here.
Well, thank you for taking the evening and coming out. I don't have any other questions, so I appreciate you coming out.
Thanks, John. Tom?
Yeah, I agree with the officer. I do not believe this is a Second Amendment issue. I don't think that anybody's right to bear arms would be impinged upon. In fact, it's well preserved on all town property with the exception of schools. In addition to that, we've had competent legal advice around that very question, and have been assured that we're on solid ground if we consider this, and that the local government does have an opportunity and the ability to regulate target shooting. But I say that just because we can do it doesn't necessarily mean we should, and I think there's a rather high threshold for imposing a law around this. And so to try to bleed out some of the emotion and just consider the facts, I wrote down 5 questions that I needed to get answers to really at what's at stake. The first one is, can we preserve the public's right to carry and bear arms? And I think it's a solid yes. I don't think that anything that we've spoken about would restrict that. Secondly, second question is, can we preserve a rather rich local hunting environment to be used? And again, I think the answer to that is yes, and I have not heard any of the 5 counselors suggest that we should restrict or limit hunting on town property. Third question is, can we provide a safe place for the non-shooting public to recreate? That is a tougher question. I think the answer is still yes. I think we have a lot of resources to draw upon. We have an officer in front of us with some expertise. We have a lot of responsible gun owners as residents. We have a lot of ex-military veterans who live in town who grew up in their formative adult years learning how to shoot, learning the responsibilities of safety associated with that and the responsibility associated with that, and how to shoot, how to maintain a weapon, and how to care for it. Do we have, this is a very interesting question that didn't really occur to me till after the meeting was over last week, but do we have any issues with potential unsafe conditions with low-flying aircraft? Let me explain that a little bit, because it's kind of an odd question. That's why it didn't occur to me. But if those of you who live out in the north end of town, or also the west end of town, you know that when planes land on the north-south runway at the airport, they tend to use High Range Road as their approach, and they line up with High Range Road. Well, High Range Road happens to be right adjacent to the Musquash, which happens to be why we're discussing this, because of incidents that occurred there. So although the ordinance we're speaking about applies to lands other than the Musquash, let's just stay within the context of the Musquash. As those aircraft hone in on High Range Road and begin to lower their altitude, they're going to be riding right over the Musquash, and I guess a question would be, and I guess this might apply more appropriately to target shooting that encompasses skeet shooting, which is shooting to the sky. What are the chances that we may have an issue with the FAA, and especially I've asked, and we have yet to receive feedback from the FAA, is if they have knowledge that there's unregulated target shooting in that vicinity under the landing approach to the north-south runway, do they have issues with that? And if so, is it at a specific altitude, when the planes are at a specific altitude? Obviously, the further south the aircraft are, the higher the altitude, and as they approach the runway, they get lower and lower. That only makes sense. But and that's a question that I don't know the answer to, that I would like to hear the FAA weigh in on that and see what their opinion is. And lastly, last question is, can we provide a low-cost or a no-cost target shooting venue to the public? We heard the officer mention sectioning off a portion of the of the property for target shooting. I am in favor of that. I think, again, we can turn to the NRA for experts. We have New Hampshire Fish and Game, and I think we should encourage it. I think the safe use of guns can only be enhanced with more target shooting and more familiarity with the weapons as owners use them. I said this before, and I'll say it again. One of the areas to be concerned with is a gun owner who doesn't know how to use their gun, or a gun owner who has very little, if any, target shooting practice, which is one of the best ways to learn your weapon. So we will, I think, improve our chances of safe gun ownership by encouraging target shooting, not discouraging it, and providing venues for target shooting. And I like the low or no cost venue for those gun owners who find the membership fees to shooting clubs out of their reach, and therefore can't make themselves can't make their shooting ranges available to them. Then I think that the town could, with the amount of land that we have, could provide an opportunity for low or no cost target shooting. We've done that for other clubs in the past who want to use town-owned property for recreation, and I think this can fit right in there. We know that there probably is a cost to setting up a target range. If there's an area that we want to create a backstop or berms around target shooting, that may represent some cost. But again, although I would not advocate taxpayer funding for that, that would be up to the taxpayers to decide if they wanted to put a warrant article or they wanted to bring it up at the deliberative session. That's their option. I would encourage private funding and also take advantage of the NRA 50-50 match program that they have to contribute to the efforts like this. So we already know that they would encourage it if we were to go down that path. I think that scenarios like this, when they're presented to local government body, can result in winners and losers. And I think that if we're careful, we can find a path that results in a win-win. A win for the gun owners and a win for the non-gun recreators that want to use the same property or adjacent property to those who want to use it for target shooting. John mentioned the insurance liability. We don't really have a clear question on that, and we don't have an answer yet back, and it's the fact that we asked so late. FAA typically takes longer than just a couple of days to respond to a question like that, so we don't have that answer yet either.
As the airport liaison, I just sent Mark a note to call me, and I'll see what I can find out.
Okay. So it would be my recommendation to... sorry.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. It seems that the police chief may have something to
I'm sorry.
contribute.
Right ahead.
Hi, Bill Hart, Chief of Police. I did reach out to the airport at the request of the town manager to get their input generally on this, and they said they didn't have any opinion, understood the issue, and saw no need to weigh in, as they did not wish to impinge on any town action, whichever way you go. So they had about a week to consider it. I reached out on Tuesday last. So I'm imagining they thought some of these issues through. So,
Good, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So, Mr. Chairman, it's my recommendation that we do section off a portion of public land, whether it's in the Mushwash or some other area, maybe up in the Albin Road area and in the where the landfill is, and the or other areas. We saw tonight a plethora of folks willing to step up and volunteer on a safety issue in town. I think we should again call on our residents to come forth and work this issue, come up with a survey our town-owned property, find a venue that would be acceptable, perhaps a very low cost. There might be some natural backstops out there depending on the venue that's selected, so that the amount of construction around a range would be very limited in terms of cost, and then and recommend how we would accomplish that. So I would recommend that in the short term, to provide for the safety of those wishing to recreate, that we not do anything with hunting at all, that we preserve that, but we do ask those who want to target shoot that they don't do it unless they're on at an approved range or on private property.
Okay, Tom, noted. Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Officer, do I understand right, you patrol the area, or you have jurisdiction over the Musquash area?
Yep.
Okay. You said over the last 3 years, you got no complaints about target shooting or any...
I have not, no.
Okay. And since nobody's contemplating stopping hunting on there, and that includes firearms, what's the safety issue then? Don't we have shooting in the Musquash? Won't we, if we do what we're saying here, we're going to start target shooting, but there's still going to be firearms, shots going off, right?
Right.
Okay. And by hunting, I imagine that's mostly rifles, shotguns?
Yeah, it's shotguns. There's no rifles allowed in London.
Okay, so shotguns.
For hunting.
So we're still going to have firing at moving targets by individual hunters that are moving, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've now, the entire Musquash now is essentially a range. Would you agree with me?
I wouldn't say it's a range.
Well, there's firing going on during hunting season, right? And we don't know where it is, so at any point, at any time, somebody could be shooting at any angle.
At specific times when hunting's allowed.
Right.
No, but...
And it's not
multiple
they're not-
shots is what you're saying, right?
Hunters aren't out there blasting away at animals. They're taking good, well-aimed, they've been through the hunter ed course, they've been through the ethics, they're taking good, well-aimed play shots. They're trying to take an animal. Most of the shots are 20 to 30 yards. They're not far. They're usually shooting from a tree stand in an elevated position, shooting down at the ground, shooting at an animal.
So you're guaranteeing, what I'm asking, officer, is you're guaranteeing that nobody's ever been hurt by a hunter firing a shot in New Hampshire?
It's happened. It's one of the safest sports there is. It's safer than football. It's
I
safer
agree.
than basketball.
My concern is that you're banning one type of firearms and not banning another. And to me,
that's why I'm recommending that you do a shooting, a designated range where people can shoot, where it's confined, so you don't have someone. Most people that are target shooting, they're out there, they're blasting away round. They're just shooting. They're there to shoot. They're there to practice shooting. So they're shooting multiple times. If they're hunting, they're usually shooting 1-2 shots at most at an animal.
No, but my concern is that this is an overreaction over one incident. I mean, you said 3 years, no reports. The chief of police said 9 incidents over 3 years.
Yep.
They're of firearm noise, not even shooting.
And that's the whole
Not
town.
identified shooting.
That's the whole town.
Right.
I think
It's not the Musquash?
With all due respect, I think what the officer's trying to say is that there's rules around hunting.
Mhm.
And what he's saying is those rules, and when you apply those rules, you have good safety. And I don't want to speak for you, but what I think he's saying about target shooting is apply some rules, and you'll have good safety. I think that's what he's trying to say.
That's what when I got the call from John the other day, that's what I kind of got from it, was that there's a safety concern. You're worried about something happening with...
But that's my concern, is what's the safety issue here? Because to me, the far greater safety issue is firing a shotgun at an unknown time, at an unknown angle. And while you say they're trained hunters, and I agree, but you're firing throughout the whole Musquash now, there could be somebody firing in your direction. You wouldn't know. And the hunter may not know because he may not see you.
But during that period of time, aren't there presumed rules for the hikers that they know that that's going to happen and they should dress in orange and they know that they're taking a risk by going out there during hunting season?
And the presumption is that the target shooter is violating every conceivable rule. I mean, I just don't see the logic in that.
I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying it's a good idea to have an area where people can target shoot. It sounds like you're for the target shooting and you're against the hunters being out.
No. I'm saying, I just think we're making a rule about something that hasn't been a problem in, 40 years since the musquash has been there.
Yeah.
And I don't
I agree with you there.
To me, frankly, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna limit target shooting because you think somebody was violating the rules to begin with, how are you going to stop them from violating the rules? Because they don't want to go to your designated area because they like to go somewhere else. I mean, if the premise of your response is, this guy was doing something he shouldn't be doing, what do you think building a target shooting range is going to do? He's now going to comply? I just don't buy that.
Well, if you you have the option of making the ordinance that they have, target shooting is only allowed. That's what, I brought these other options, okay? So I said you can only allow shooting from September 1st to December 31st. So then people could target practice. You wouldn't have to have a shooting range. People could target practice there. People could hunt there. I'm just making suggestions, okay? I don't want to see hunting and I don't want to see shooting taken away from the musquash. It's a great place for people to go. It's one of the, like I said, it's one of the biggest areas in southern New Hampshire. I get questions from people all the time, where can I go? Where can I go to shoot?
No, but I understand, but my problem is this, okay? If the person that was doing the target shooting was, for lack of a better term, a criminal, he's going out there, he's shouldn't have been out there with a gun, shouldn't have been out there with that type of gun, shouldn't have been doing what he was going to do. I don't see making a designated range is going to make him magically comply with those rules.
I'm not saying that either.
And if that's the case, because haven't heard that there's been a lot of target shooting going on there, other than this person that's been reported.
Yep.
So there hasn't been a lot of law-abiding people going out there target shooting properly and just going to different areas because there's no designated range. I think you're trying to, for lack of a better term, I guess, is, make a law to, stop for people to stop being irresponsible. They're going to be irresponsible.
Right, and as I said, I'm not pushing for that. I am suggesting this to you guys to make, and I'm making different suggestions. I don't, as long as you don't get rid of hunting on the musquash or get rid of shooting on, as long as people can still do that and you can make it work with the insurance company and make everyone happy.
Well, frankly, if we're going to talk about the insurance company, I've had a lot of experience with insurance companies, and what they want is you to have a force field around you, and then when you do get hurt, they're going to deny liability anyway. So,
that's fine. But
you're not banning shooting, John, on the musquash. So the idea that you're banning one and not the other, their insurance company is going to say to you, you should go to the next step.
I'm not looking to ban anything. I'm asking for an answer from the insurance company, and I don't have one. Do you?
I know what their answer will be. It will be simply this. If you could stop one, then you've got an obligation to stop it all.
No, the answer is going to be is that you need to post it and say that target shooting and skeet shooting can go on anywhere in the 800 acres of the musquash. And you have to notice that, and then we're covered. That's what they're going to say.
It's fine, notice it.
Well, we will definitely go to the public.
That's what they're going to say. If that's what we
but
want,
we're going to bicker with ourselves first, and then we'll go to the public.
That's what they're going to say, Tom. And if we're okay with that, fine. I'm not looking to outlaw shooting. Okay? Ask this nice gentleman to come here and share his experience of what he's seen. What he's suggesting is, geez, I've seen this. It sort of works. He's all for keeping shooting in the musquash.
But my question is, that's a response, but we don't have a problem, I don't think, is my concern.
Right, you've seen them making the problem. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now, listening to all of you. Are you for the shooting in the time shooting?
Yeah, can we? I get it. Okay. We need to stop. Hey, please, if you want to say something, you'll be allowed to. Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Can you give us some of the towns that they've actually designated target shooting in certain areas at? Do you
No, I know they have made rules where you can only hunt certain times, which don't coincide with fishing games. How they say it, Salem regulates it from a certain date to a certain date where they can hunt, and actually they regulate what you can take for an animal. There's no other towns that have actually set up a shooting range. That's just a suggestion that I brought forward myself after talking to John the other day.
And no town's banned skeet shooting either, correct? So have you ever had any, whether or not the town banned it or not, have you had any complaints about target shooting in any areas that you patrol?
I have complaints about target shooting all the time, but not on town well, some of it on town property, some of it on private properties. Most of the complaints are people are out there shooting and they're leaving litter. And they're not picking up after themselves, so that's what most of the complaints are.
So again, it's the litter issue.
Right.
Versus
Yes.
safety. I have no feelings. Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, just wanted to defend my position last time. I think all of you heard that I called this a Second Amendment right. I do want to state, I hate to put on a class. I always comment when my fellow councilors do this, but I do have to state some of the research that I uncovered. So I will read a little bit here. I'll try to get through it quickly. It's only a paragraph and a half. Prior to the Supreme Court's 2008 decision in District of Columbia versus Heller, the court had yet to definitively state what right the Second Amendment protected. The opposing theories perhaps oversimplified, where, one, an individual's right approached, whereby the amendment protected individual's right to firearm ownership, possession, and transportation, and number two, a state rights approach under which the amendment only protected the right to keep and bear arms in connection with organized state militia units. And number two, moreover, it was generally believed that the amendment was only a bar to federal action, not to state or municipal restraints. However, the Supreme Court has now definitively held that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess a firearm unconnected with service in a militia and to use the weapon for traditional lawful purposes. So that clearly states it is a Second Amendment right. Thank you.
Is that all you got, Joe?
That's it.
Okay. The council's okay? I'd like to open it up to the public. Okay. Folks, you want to come up, state your name for the record? Preferably Londonderry residents, hopefully.
Al Baldessaro, 41 Hall Road. I'm going to try to make this quick because I know John missed the last meeting when I brought up the different laws of the state. And I'm going to clarify something on a question he was concerned with liability. Because I doubt very serious any insurance company in the state of New Hampshire that denies our insurance because we're shooting, they have a problem. And I'm going to tell you why. Under RSA 212:34, which is the duty of care. It's a liability for landowners. The state of New Hampshire protected landowners because we take our Second Amendment right to go out and hunt, fish, protect ourselves seriously here in New Hampshire. So there are liability laws in the state of New Hampshire to protect that. So I can't see an insurance company coming there. Now, I do know a few fathers, not many, that do take their children out there and teach them gun safety, okay? I don't know a lot that do that. I don't even know many, that even do target shooting out there. But I think by putting in a law, an ordinance here in town, is going to cause a police officer to make some tough decisions. Because when you're out there shooting and they don't see a deer, and somebody sitting over here is accusing you of target shooting. And it was brought up last time that this is a lawyer's dream, this ordinance here that you want to bring it forward here. Okay, it's going to cause problems. You're going to pit Londonderry gun, shooters against the police, and it's going to be in court because the burden of proof is going to end up on the person, and not only credibility. If a police officer wrote that ticket because he didn't see, okay, it's got to be proven in court. So we causing more problems, more court cases here with this here. Okay, so I hope your liability question is answered because you can pull up 212:34. There is an issue with the liability that we're moving forward with it in the State House, which will come up in January. Senator Sanborn is filing in the state Senate to straighten out a case that's going on right now where somebody, it's a private land use issue where somebody gave
And he
permission.
fell off a tree stand and he's suing the guy.
Right,
I
and
know.
they're suing, but we're gonna fix that like we did the Ward Berg case. Okay, so that's gonna be done in January. Mine is hunting. I'm gonna brief, once again, you weren't here. I'm trying to go quick because I know other people want to speak. I just want to make sure we're complying with the laws in New Hampshire. If the Conservation Commission seen a young kid out there shooting at a radio, I don't understand why he didn't call the police, because he's breaking the law. It should be held accountable. If they're shooting at TVs or radios, whatever it is, once again, he's breaking the law. He should be held accountable. Not all hunters in the town, or shooters, or somebody goes out and sights their weapon out there, should be held accountable. Fish and Game, I'm sure, sat here and said, most of the issues is with litter in the state of New Hampshire. I think I read before the Fish and Game land and what on their site, 80 or 85%, whatever it was, is in New Hampshire is open for shooting and hunting, a large mass. This is feel-good legislation that opens up a can of worms, okay, for lawsuits and everything else, because some don't like the noise. You're going to hear from a gentleman that's going to come up from the Fish and Game game club here. He'll tell you some of the things that go on, who's better adverse in laws and everything else in the state of New Hampshire. There are other laws out there that exclusive authority of the state. If Salem is regulating hunting, they got a problem, okay, because they're not in compliance with 207:59. Now, where it says exclusive authority of the state of New Hampshire shall have exclusive authority and jurisdiction over the management, preservation, protection, propagation, and taking of wildlife in the state. I mean, we can go on and on. You can read these laws yourself. They're there, cut and dry. I'm asking you, please.
Hold on.
I just had a question. I mentioned that if someone's target shooting and using a stereo as the target, what law? You said they're already breaking the law. What law are they breaking?
I'm saying that's litter. There should not be any broken radio.
I don't think they were accused of just depositing the stereo there. That's a litter. But what law are they breaking by target shooting it?
Okay, when you turn around and shooting that radio, you have broken pieces and other stuff going around. You're littering. I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist to figure that out, but that's litter. And I would think somebody will hold them accountable out there for littering and shooting out all these pieces of stuff all around.
So you're not suggesting that the target shooting of the stereo is breaking the law. You're saying that the litter, as a result of it,
I'm saying the litter. If somebody's that stupid out there shooting a radio, then we got problems. He's got no business being out there, especially if he's a young kid, target practicing. But there's no proof, no nothing. What type of weapon? There are many sounds that go off. I hear them every day over where I live at. I hear at nighttime. And I was talking to one of the hunters, coyote hunting goes on all year round. So when you want to ban hunting, and like somebody said last week, if you've got 6 shooters out there, and they're shooting, okay, they all might shoot at the same deer. One got it, but the other 5 is at target hunting. I mean, we can go on and on in this. I'm hoping you take a look at...
Nobody is suggesting we ban hunting.
I never said that. Never said that.
No, you did say if you ban hunting.
Okay, let me rephrase that. I apologize. Thank you. If I said that because I'm going too fast, trying to rush so other people can get up here, I just want to make sure we understand the laws of the land, okay, on this here. This is a way to get the nose under the tent, under a Second Amendment right, to get into the musquash and say, oh, no more shooting. It's a matter of time. They tried it a few years ago. Councilor Dolan was on the council then, and now we're back again a few years later. Okay, I'm asking you to do the right thing.
Let's try to keep it to the focus.
I am. I'm just saying.
What happened 3 years ago is 3 years ago. We're here now. So.
Okay.
Al, just to help you, there's New Hampshire Code Chapter 163-B is a litter control law. So if you guys want to read that, there is a law there.
Thank you. I know there is. I just...
It says the word litter means all rubbish, refuge, garbage, trash, debris, dead animals, and other discarded materials of every kind and description.
Right. I'm familiar with the law there. That's why as a state rep for over almost 5 years, I work with a lot of this stuff. And, you know, it's important to understand the laws of the land here. New Hampshire does not have a safety problem when it comes to weapons. Our record tells a story in New Hampshire. We got a problem. You heard Fish and Game. Our major problem is trash. That's how I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Dan Tamburello, 3 Royal Lane. For the record, I'd like to state I agree with just about everything Representative Baldessaro just mentioned. As fate would have it, as I was sitting in the front row, I was listening to Councilor Dolan's comments about an aircraft and the potential danger for trap shooting and flying an aircraft. Well, I happen to have some experience in both subjects. I was brought up trap and skeet shooting with my father from a very small child. Shot all kinds of weapons in the U.S. inventory in the Marine Corps, my 15 years in the Marine Corps. I also, in the Marines, flew an F-18 and flew about 4 different military model aircraft, including 2 different model civilian aircraft prior to joining the military. Just so happens, when I was in advanced fighter training in Meridian, Mississippi, you fly a carrier pattern around an outlying landing field at 600 feet above ground level. There was an individual. Now, let me explain how this works. The regular airfield, Naval Air Station Meridian, has outlying landing fields where they do what they call field carrier landing practice. Okay. The carrier pattern, that the break is 800 feet AGL, above ground level. You descend to 600 feet above ground level and fly an ovular pattern in alignment with the airfield. I also happen to live on Royal Lane, which is, as those of you familiar with the town, as I'm sure every one of the councilors is right on that same north-south approach. So if you're headed northbound, the northbound runway, you're approaching. And I would estimate their altitude to be somewhere around, although I haven't flown in Manchester myself because I haven't flown since 2002, around 800 to 1,000 feet, give or take 200 feet AGL. Now, trap shooting, the angle of the weapon, not getting into the ballistics, because I don't think the weapon could actually reach 1,000 feet effectively. The angle of the weapon of a shotgun is what you're using when you're trap shooting. When you skeet and trap shoot, you don't actually point high enough to reach a target at about 1,000 feet. So the only area where you'd actually be in danger of reaching an aircraft with a shotgun, 12 gauge, 20 gauge is what's typically used, would be much, much closer to the airfield. Now, most civilian and military aircraft use an approach angle of about 3 degrees to 4 degrees glide slope. So what that means is if you're flying down that high-range road headed towards the northbound runway, at let's say my numbers are correct, at approximately 1,000 feet AGL, and you could check it by looking at an approach plate. Northbound runway, the VFR approach, and this is only VFR, which means if you can actually see where you're going, you can use that at 1,000 feet. If it's an IFR approach, I guarantee you it's higher, because they have to maintain that glide slope from further away. And remember, it's about 3 degrees. So if you do the math, what that means, at 1,000 feet, it's 30 feet above the ground. So just angle it all out. 4 degrees, it's even higher, 40 feet above the ground. Okay? So you're not putting anybody in danger, in my estimation, and we could do a map study. I'd be happy to sit with the counselors and show them, potentially where that is. And Chief Hart mentioned that the airport didn't have any concern. Obviously, they don't think it's in any danger. But if that doesn't rest aside any concerns that you might have, going back to my experience in Meridian, Mississippi, I happened to have a classmate that was flying an aircraft at 600 feet AGL on the carrier pattern at the FCL, doing FCLP, field carrier landing practice, where we had a crazy guy in a house with a shotgun shooting at naval aircraft because he accused us of dumping fuel on his house. Even if his shots were accurate, I don't think that they could have effectively brought down that aircraft. Maybe put it into an emergency landing type situation, but I think it's a kind of a canard. So I think Representative Baldessaro covered everything else I wanted to say, so I'll leave it at that. And in the interest of time, I'll turn it over to the people behind me in line, unless you have questions for me.
That was very interesting. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Dan.
Hi, my name is Lawrence Lacey. I'm a citizen of the town of Londonderry. I'm a property owner. And I just want to, before I even go on...
Can you just give us your street address, sir?
Sure, Sparhawk Drive, Londonderry. I'm a little confused, because when I'm here because of the article I read in the Londonderry Times, and then as I'm sitting here with the meeting with the conservation officer, and then the councilors going back and forth, what exactly is the issue at hand? I mean, if hunting is being allowed in these areas, you know, firearms are being utilized. So target shooting would provide safety for people using firearms. You wouldn't want somebody just to go outside with a weapon or a firearm with no training and not having the sighting in.
Well, let me read to you, just so you're clear.
Okay.
What the ordinance in front of us is, letter B in section 2 of prohibited activities. Target or skeet shooting, meaning discharging a firearm at a stationary or moving target. Hunting of game on town property shall be allowed in accordance with all rules, regulations, and statutes as promulgated by the state legislature or the state New Hampshire Fish and Game Department.
Okay, so why is this being brought up, though? If hunting has been allowed, and, you know, the state of New Hampshire Constitution also supports the Second Amendment, where every New Hampshire resident is able to possess a firearm, training with the firearm, I mean, is probably the first thing that you want if you're going to allow people to have firearms. There's hunting on the property, so I'm still confused why target shooting is an issue. If there are firearms being utilized, and as Councilor Frieda had said, you know, hunters are shooting from different angles, and the conservation officer added the tree stands and everything. So you picture a cartoon where everybody's shooting at each other and bullets are going everywhere. That's already existence in the state, in the city, and there hasn't been a problem, and hunting's been allowed. So why is the target shooting becoming an issue when somebody's trying to become a more proficient hunter? And as the conservation officer said, most people who are law-abiding citizens and use firearms aren't going to go out and shoot 20 shots at an animal. They're going to try to make one shot and then maybe a second mercy shot, and that's necessary from practice. And then, you know, everybody was arguing up here about, you know, what the conservation officer was saying about taking the actual target shooting. I was confused because I think he was just giving his point of, if there's an issue at hand, why not just use common sense and say, okay, if you're going to target shoot, don't go near the outskirts where the streets are, where homes are, or any of that is. Stay in the middle of the property, or one end of the property be designated. It wouldn't even have to cost money. People would volunteer with their backhoes and tractors to dig a ditch and just put a wall of dirt with some fill in it. That's going to stop any type of ricochet, and especially if they're only using shotguns and they're not using rifles, the ricochet isn't going to be several miles. If you're using a rifle, okay, the ricochet could possibly be 1-2 miles or whatever, depending on the type of ammunition being used. But most skeet shooting and most of the target practicing that's going on there, then that's allowed, is with the shotgun. So, you know, as the other gentleman said about the FAA safety issue, unless you're on the runway, you're not going to do any damage to a plane or even come anywhere close. So I'm just trying to find out with all of you, what's the consensus? I mean, are we trying to just ban target shooting in general? Are we trying to make it a safer issue and use some common sense? Why it's even becoming an ordinance? There seems like there's so much other stuff in the town of Londonderry right now that needs to be addressed. People are not going to be able to afford heating in the winter or feeding their children and putting food on the table, that we're bickering over something that's already been allowed for years. Nothing's changed. The hunting is still going on. So if somebody's trying to be a better shooter to take an animal or prey because maybe they want to put food on their table, why is there an issue right now with the target shooting is what I'm feeling as a resident to understand. What is, and then they say about the liability with insurance.
Tom has a question for you. So
I think part of the issue is that you're absolutely right. The hunting is typically shotgun hunting. In the area of target shooting, it's not limited to any particular weapon. Be rifle, pistol, high-powered weapons, shotguns.
And I would agree, but wouldn't common sense be a better thing than even wasting, you know, the council's time, the city's time, anybody's time?
You would hope, but also the other issue is, this kind of gets to what Councilor Frieda was talking to, is that during hunting season, by state statute, the hunting is limited from a date to another certain date. And during that time, we know that a lot of folks who are recreating in the woods leave, or they stay away, or they
from the areas
right. So, but with target shooting, that's not limited by any particular dates. You can be target shooting in July or in May or whatever. So that's part of the safety issue that I think is on the table.
Okay, so then couldn't something just be worked out where, like, since they're wasting even all of your gentlemen's time and ladies as well, you have so much more to do, to put a common sense application in where if there's gonna be any target shooting, please stay on, this side that's away from the residences, the streets, or anywhere there's a short space or no buffer, no trees or anything to stop it.
I think
They
what
can
I've
keep both
suggested
sides
is,
happy.
you've kind of summarized in a much more succinct way what I'm suggesting.
Right, because we're bringing in liability with insurances, whose Second Amendment rights and all this issues that really aren't an issue.
I think we have enough public property, even in the Musquash, to accommodate everybody's
Exactly.
interests.
So I was just trying to find out, it just seemed like, from what I read in the newspaper to what I was hearing today, just wasn't making sense from A, B to C. It was just kind of sitting on A and everybody's bickering about certain issues, but even the liability, if yesterday there was no problem with the insurance company, and again, as Councilor Frieda said, if you go asking questions to the insurance company, they're gonna, I had to take out my diving board and have a built-in swimming pool when I moved here because they didn't want to cover it. I didn't like doing it, but in order to have my home insured, I had to rip it up. If you go and ask for trouble, or just if they find out, of course they're gonna, push you in the wrong direction. But if there wasn't any problem with the town yesterday or the town today even allowing hunting, it's all related. It's shooting and it's a firearm going off, whether it's at an animal, at a target, or whatever. And, I guess a couple other people were trying to, incur also that you're gonna have the hooligans or the, people that aren't law-abiding citizens. Most of them are going to their backyards or someplace else and just fire it anyways. They're not gonna go to someplace that's designated for hunting and target shooting. Most of the people and the hunters and the owners of firearms are law-abiding citizens. We're getting a bad rap because of the people who aren't. And again, like I say, I agree with a lot of points that all of you said, especially you, Mr. Balsaro. And thank you very much for your time.
I just want to answer that real quick. I think you're right. Sometimes we beat things to death on common sense issues. So I appreciate you coming up and at least voicing your opinion.
Thank you
That's
very much.
refreshing.
I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Thanks for coming down tonight. We appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Rick Olson. I'm the past president of the Londonderry Fish and Game Club. I'm currently on the board of directors for the club. I've been a member of the club since 1977. When I was about 13 years old, I used to shoot my .22 rifle when I lived over on Young Road. As long as I didn't hit any of Mrs. Crosby's 500 cats, I was fine. But that was my first introduction to the Londonderry Fish and Game Club. So I have a history. I've been with the club that many years, and Londonderry as a town has changed. I understand people have different sensibilities about different things, but I'm here tonight on behalf of the Londonderry Fish and Game Club because I feel as though this is yet another issue that is bumping up against us, because we own 83 acres over in that corner of town. We've got the Musquash Conservation Land abutting us on two sides, from the further reaches of the northeast side all the way down to the southwest side of our land. And it seems like when we have friction and issues with people, it's always the users of the Musquash. Case in point, last fall, not this year, but last fall, when I was out there hunting, I had some, woman telling me, you need to find another place to hunt. This is a walking path. And I said, baloney, you're on Londonderry Fish and Game land, and if you take that attitude, you're a trespasser. So, we don't close off our land to use. People can come on our land and use our land. We don't have any problem with that. We have 83 acres. We have our ranges in places. But don't, come and give us a bunch of static. So now I'm looking at this, I'm thinking no shooting in the Musquash. There's going to be a rule where nobody's allowed to shoot. Yet another issue where people are going to be bumping up against us. Well, we're sick of it. We had this issue with the whole hunting thing 3 years ago. Now we have this. We're advocates. We advocate for shooting. We're a shooting club. We have ranges. We don't advocate for people being unsafe. But I can tell you, on our ranges, we have 500 members. We have three types of members. We have hunters, we have precision shooters, and then we have yahoos. Okay. We have rules on our ranges. We have rules about using televisions. And we have rules about using radios and tires and unsafe objects. And the reason we have is because we have the same considerations as everybody else. Pollution. Old TV screens sometimes have mercury in them. We don't want that in our property. We monitor our property for our lead levels. We keep good track of our ranges. We keep our ranges clean. But yet, we always have that 10% that'll show up and gleefully mess it up. And I think this is a solution in search of a problem, basically making a rule to ban hunting in the musquash, it doesn't really, I mean, it's like Councilor Frieda stated, you know, it's not going to regulate those who don't have a regard for the rules. And for that reason, and if I sound frustrated, I'm sorry, but I'm tired of the Litchfield residents bumping up against us, and I'm tired of some Londonderry residents. I mean, the people here are very nice. You know, I lived here when I was a kid, but, you know, I'm getting worn out, basically. You know, we've been there since 1974. We had nobody around us. Now all of a sudden we have this one crying and whining. You know, we're trying to have a birthday party, and you guys are up there shooting machine guns, you know. So, I mean, we still get the static, okay? So you make an ordinance that says no shooting in the musquash, okay? And then gunfire. Who's at the musquash now? We are. We're on the other side. We're on all sides of it. So, you know, when people are going to complain, they're going to complain about gunfire when, in fact, it's probably coming from us. I mean, that's just the reality of it. You know, and we're like any place else in society. We have shooters at our club. We have designated places for shooting. And we have the yahoos. They show up. They don't have any regard. And we just disciplined a guy last year. We threw him out of the club because he just blatantly refused to follow our rules. And, I mean, that's just the reality. And I think this, again, I'll say it again, this is just another solution in search of a problem. And, you know, I don't know what I understand what your issues are, and I understand what your concerns are. But again, I don't think the data really supports the action. You know, you don't have enough firearm-related incidents to really say.
Well, we had, you know, the question's been asked. I'm going to answer it. We had two residents of Londonderry, both are from the Conservation Commission, expressed a concern over that one incident, and now we have the ordinance in front of us.
Sure. Well, I'm on the Conservation Commission in the town where I live. I can tell you. You know, I mean, Conservation Commission, it's a tricky thing. I mean, I don't know if they're using it as a pretext to put this forward, but we oppose the law as a Londonderry taxpayer. The Londonderry Fish and Game Club, we oppose the ordinance, plain and simple. And we're unambiguous about that, and we perceive it as just another issue where they're bumping up against us.
Okay, so the question first, Tom had to go, and then John.
Just so the headline is correct tomorrow in the paper, we've said it a number of times, we're not interested in banning shooting in the musquash. We're not interested in banning hunting anywhere. So
I didn't say banning hunting.
You did.
You did about
several
3 times.
Banning hunting was, I mean, it's always a different angle. Let me clarify. 3 years ago, there was an attempt to ban hunting. Now it's an attempt to ban shooting. Okay, I mean that's what I'm clear about. It just seems like it's being hit from a different angle, and it's always bumping up against us. You know, the club.
Let me ask you a safety question. If at your range, your shooting range,
yes,
if you were to dismantle the backstop and any side berms and just open it so that the downrange of the shooting range just went into the musquash or into a residential area, would you still allow target shooting there?
Well, I'm not sure I understand why you're asking the question.
Well, because that's what we have in the musquash. We have no backstop. We have no side berms. Downrange is as far as the bullets can go. Would you allow target shooting under that scenario in the Fish and Game Club?
We have ranges set up at our club specifically for that specific use.
Let's say you didn't have a range set up, and a group came in and said, "Listen, we want to do some target shooting, and can we do it right over there? Just a whole bunch of trees and whatever." Would you allow it to happen?
Again, we're a Fish and Game Club, and we have ranges. Okay. Right. I'm not going to let you pigeonhole me, Counselor, into asking a trick question. Well, sorry.
Because the scenario that we're faced with is we have target shooting in an area where there's no range.
Well, I understand that, and you got to admit that the terrain within the musquash is varied. I mean, there's different varying areas of terrain. If I bet tomorrow I can go out into the musquash with a 30-06 rifle and a target, and I can find a place in there that's reasonable to shoot. I bet
you could. I bet you
I could.
I completely agree with you.
I bet you. I agree with you too.
I could find a place.
But for those individuals who don't choose as wisely as you choose, and maybe don't understand once they're deep into the musquash or any other public land, and don't understand the orientation of the downrange fire, you can because of the experience you have and the expertise you have. But someone who might be shooting for the first time, maybe never have shot their weapon and want to get some real good, honest practice. are you confident that they'll be able to safely select an area to shoot where the downrange impact is zero?
I guess the best answer I can give you is I don't know. And the reason, and I'm not being silly when I say that, because every time I run into a person that has no experience with firearms, generally they're calling me or they're calling one of the other gentlemen at the club. I mean, they recognize their level of experience.
Right.
I think the people that fall into that category just go out and find a place to shoot and really are ignorant on that level are really a very minute percentage.
My position is that we help them find those proper places to shoot and say,
Sure.
hey, you ought to be shooting here because of the terrain or the backstop or whatever, whether one was constructed or whether it's a natural occurring backstop, that we ought to say, here's where you ought to be doing your target shooting.
Sure, and let me be clear. I have no opposition to the town of Londonderry establishing a shooting area. In fact, the Londonderry Police Department has their very own range in proximity to where our club is. I mean, it's not even a mile from it. When that proposal came before this council, we actually showed up and voiced our support for that. Despite the fact we were losing revenue because they weren't going to use our range anymore. But we rose above the issue and we recognized that their needs were, our facility were limited according to their needs, and they needed to build their own facility, and we supported that effort because Londonderry Police used our facility for years. So, I mean, in terms of ranges, I mean, we support, we're not against Londonderry establishing a designated shooting area. I guess what I'm against is just the whole uncomfortable notion of eliminating shooting in the Musquash, because
that's not on the table.
Just because that's what's written in the ordinance, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're going to do. That's why you have a public hearing to find out what's the right thing to do.
Right. No,
that's
I understand.
why I asked the guy from New Hampshire Fish and Game to come here. I didn't know the answer. I don't know. That's why I went and asked.
I want to just elaborate on what Jeff was saying, Conservation Officer Pushy. I'm a hunter ed instructor. I'm a bow hunter ed instructor. I've been teaching hunter ed for over 10 years. And one of the most important aspects we teach in hunter ed is knowing your target and what lies beyond it. So anybody and everybody that goes through our program has that cussed and discussed. In addition, we talk about proper firearm use. I'm also a board member on the New Hampshire Wildlife Federation. And that's also a very big issue, hunter ethics, okay? So going back to, people shooting in the Musquash, putting a TV out there. We have people that are members of our club. They're not hunters. They're not sportsmen. They just sign up and they pay their $100 fee so that they can come and shoot their rifles, tactical rifles, whatever they are. Whatever they choose to shoot, they come and they shoot. And we have to rein them in because they put out big, thick steel plates. They put out televisions. I've seen them put out computer screens. It's just ridiculous. And again, it's a mess. We had a car, back a few years ago, we had a car that looked like Swiss cheese because it got put out on our range and nobody took it away, And so I understand that concern. The last thing you need is to have a bullet-riddled car or a refrigerator sitting out in the Musquash. It's a pristine, very beautiful piece of raw land, and that needs to be preserved, So I guess that's my 2 cents for what it's worth on behalf of the Londonderry Fish and Game Club.
So let me, a little bit about more, at least, like I said, I wasn't here last week, but a little bit more about how we got here. Late one night, 2 people from the Conservation Commission were the only people left, and they said, hey, we got a problem, this is happening. These guys are out there shooting stereos. We asked the town manager, who's away right now, but said to him, okay, what do we do? He says, well, talk to our insurance carrier, talk to our prosecutor. We need to, in order to be able to have some sort of enforcement action, we need to have some sort of way to address it. That got us where we are.
Right.
So then you have a public hearing, and then everybody comes out and gives their piece. Now, just because this thing's in front of us, we can say, no, we're not going to vote on it. We can say, no, we want it written a different way. We can say, no, we want to hear more from our attorney, or we want to give a project to our GIS software guy upstairs and say, you know what, we got 800 acres in the Musquash. Go find what you're talking about, which is a natural area to go shoot, and say, you know what, we would prefer everybody go over there so that people, I think the officer put it very well, so people can co-recreate
right,
and not have an issue. you and I talked outside. I mean, I'm totally for, you know, if it's hunting season, you gotta take the right precautions if you're going to the musquash, period, end statement. We're trying to find a happy medium. At least I am, where everybody gets a win out of this. You know, no one feels like their rights have been violated, even though the officers said that, you know, that isn't really at play here. Everyone gets the, you know, the advantage of using good public land, which under the state law is private property, okay? And everybody gets a win here, okay? Maybe some people go out there and more people join your club and they learn how to, you know, to act in a safe manner, and then they go out in the musquash. I don't know what the answer is. I do know that what's in front of me isn't perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get to something where everybody gets something and everybody enjoys what we own. I mean, we own thousands of acres of open space. Let's figure out how to enjoy it. So that and I'm not looking to say that group, no, they're no good. They can't come out here. I don't think anybody's looking for that. But that's sort of how we got here. Doesn't mean that's where we got to end. We don't have to say tonight we're going to vote and that this is going to be it. We can say to Sue, you know what? We want to change it. We want to do this. But we don't know, and I appreciate all the information you've shared.
Sure. You know, one last point. You know, we've had residents that I don't know where they understand the difference between the boundaries of the musquash and Londonderry Fish and Game Club's property. But, you know, I mean, we've never made that a town issue. We've never filed complaints. We've never squawked about that. You know, we've dealt with the resident as politely as the situation would allow. You know, and there were two people we told them, hey, get off our land, you know, because you can't be polite, get. You know, we just had to tell them that. But just for the record, you know, it's a two-way street. Our land, Londonderry Fish and Game Club, we have 83 acres. If residents that are hunting in the musquash enter onto our land, you know, that's okay with us. That's fine. We have no problem with our land is open. We advocate for open land, and we're one of the few clubs that does. So, I mean, if people want to recreate on our land, that's fine too. Just be nice to us. That's all.
Well, I think we're all looking for the same thing. And I told you outside, every night I hear gunshots, and it doesn't faze me in the least.
I do have an additional question, if you may. How do you prevent, do you have any method to prevent hikers or human habitat wanderers from wandering across your target range? How do you keep them out of the target range?
Our land is, well, within our, actually on our land,
Right.
not anywhere on the border of our land, within our property where our ranges are. They're very visibly posted about every 50 feet. We have bright yellow signs with 2.5, 3-inch block letters that say, keep out, caution, active firing range, which is downrange of where the bullet drop is, or where a perceived bullet drop would be. That's, I think last time we counted out 100 yards beyond our range is where we post that. Our goal as a club, when we monitor our ranges, we keep the best we can. We keep all of our lead within our boundaries, within our property. And that's not because it's just the right thing to do.
I think that's what you described as a interesting model that we might want to take note of if we are to designate a shooting area.
Yeah, we have, you know, I mean, it's bright yellow signs, you can't miss. And you know what? People ignore them just the same. I had some guy come up the road the other day yelling and screaming. He came onto our property. Hey, I was riding my, you know, that's the other problem. We have the power lines. We had a guy coming down on his ATV, and he claims a bullet went whistling by his head. Well, guess what? He's downrange. It's the end of our 100-yard rifle range. And I said to him, oh, you mean that no trespassing sign you went right by? A bullet came whistling by your head, and he just kind of looked and he took off. But, you know, stupid people, I mean, we have no shortage of stupid people. And it sounds like this was a stupid person that was out on the musquash shooting.
Oh, God bless you.
How do you regulate? I mean, answer me this. You know, how do you regulate the actions of stupid people? I mean, you make all the laws you want, they're still going to be stupid. I don't know how else to say it.
Well put.
Thank you. With that,
Thank you for saying it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, coyote hunting's year-round, and then there's a night season from January to March 31st, all year round.
Yeah, we heard from Fish and Game Officer that that's a very rare occurrence.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm Bob Juris, 83 High Range Road. I'd like to thank you gentlemen for addressing, the individual rights. And the concern I really have, I've listened to all the arguments, great arguments on both sides. The concern I have is you're biased toward limiting this activity somewhere. And once you implement the bias, you limit the application of our RSAs. So you're not saying to the chief of police, when something goes wrong, you have a range of RSAs that you can apply. You're saying to us now, we're going to make this illegal. If it occurs in any area other than where you designate that it's illegal, you've just limited the activity that the chief and his officers can apply. So what's the activity going to be? Is it going to be that any time that someone fires a weapon or a firearm in an area other than you designate, is that reckless discharge of a firearm? And if so, that's a felony in the state. What do you do with someone's grandson when you're telling him, we're going to charge you and your grandson with a felony because you were 100 yards out of where we designate?
Well,
True?
First of all, we haven't passed anything.
I understand.
Second of all, I'm going to say exactly what the gentleman from Fish and Game just said. I can't help stupid people, okay? The third thing is that, you know what? I would really hope that the Londonderry Police Department, and as professional as it is, has some discretion on how we do things. I think they do now. I think they're a good group of people, okay? And I think what we're all trying to say is we're trying to figure out how to co-recreate. I don't care if we designate whatever area or we don't designate. Just find a way to co-recreate so that everybody feels they can use the land in a safe, legal manner. That's all I'm saying.
Sir, I do understand what you're saying, and I agree.
And Councilor Farrell, I agree, okay. And I agree they do a fantastic job. What I don't want you gentlemen to do is to constrain them.
Right.
Because there could be an advocate that's on the other side, and the advocate says this: I observed that parent, that grandparent, encouraged that student to take the second shot. Maybe I saw game the first time, but I clearly didn't see game the second time. That constitutes target practice.
You know what? Our attorney has told us that it's private property. Okay, the Fish and Game guys have told us if we want to do something on private property, we can. As you just heard me say to the man from Fish and Game, I don't know the answer. Okay, I don't. I'm trying to figure it out. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know the answer. So,
and all I'm asking you to do is don't tie the hands of our we have a wonderful police department. Don't tie their hands. Don't limit what they can do. Let them have their discretion.
if the chief came up here and told us that we've been putting an ordinance together that tied his hands, I'd be the first one to try to change it. Okay? And I would certainly hope that our town attorney or town manager would all be smart enough to sit down with our police chief, who's also a former prosecutor and has a law degree, would sit down and say, geez, you're tying my hands here. No one's looking to do that. Absolutely nobody.
And that's why I'm opposed to you passing such a stringent ordinance.
I agree with you. This what's in front of us isn't what we want to do.
Right. So all I'm asking you, gentlemen, is please do no harm with what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Kimball, 51 Kimball Road. Seventh generation in the town of Londonderry. One of the oldest family members here. Also a United States Army veteran. I also own 100 acres of land next to the Musquash. It's called the Londonderry Country Club. And this is not the first time that this has come up before the selectmen of the town. I brought an ordinance similar to what you have, but more stringent than what you're proposing, and brought it to the town, and it was voted on, because it got voted down. And it dealt with target practicing. And What I proposed was that because of the fact that, yes, the Fish and Game Club has been out there for years, and the reason I had to bring this ordinance up was because of the pollution that they're, when they shoot. The noise level is unbearable. Every gun they shoot out there, I can hear. Every shot that the police do now, that you've put them out in the sandbank there, I hear. It comes across my land. It blats across the golf course. I've got people out there trying to play golf, trying to make a living, trying to pay the taxes here. And it's just been a nuisance. Granted, as a nuisance, you cannot sue a range for that. However, this has been a problem. I've heard people say here that, well, nobody's ever complained. Well, that's not true. I've had town managers, I've had the police department, I've talked to them all. I've made many complaints to even this police department. I don't know, I've talked to your town manager. I don't know if he's ever talked to you. And all of a sudden, this has come up. I've been quite frustrated with this whole situation. Now, you say, well, we've paid a lot of taxes to this Conservation Commission to buy that land so people could go out there and walk the trails, walk their dogs. I've talked to many people. They're afraid to go out there. They can't use it. There's guns going off all the time. You don't know who's out there. Many a time, people right behind it, they've gone down where what's called Fosia Road to go into the Musquash. And there's a little bit of a sand pit there that they dug out. And people go in there, just stop, put up their tin cans, whatever, and start banging away. Well, you should come over there sometime and listen to this crap that goes on. It's unbelievable. I've called the police. Well, gee, we don't know. We don't have any jurisdiction. We don't know what to do. I've gone down there myself and asked them, hey guys, this is unsafe here. You shouldn't be target practicing here. You can hunt here. I have absolutely no problems with hunting. That's, it's a given in this state. What I have is a problem with target practicing. There's no reason to stand out there in the woods behind a tree or whatever and bang away 1,000 rounds or whatever you've got. Now, the ordinance I put in was to, ban target practicing in the town of Londonderry and allow it to be in a building indoors. Of course, that didn't fly. But now, we've got more and more residents here. The town has changed. You've all said that. You know that. We're getting more and more people here. There's a state-of-the-art indoor range right on Brown Avenue where you can go and shoot every kind of weapon you want. You can even rent them. You can sight your gun in and do the whole thing. And that's, to me, is the safest, best way to answer this problem that we're having here. I know it's not going to go away overnight. People are going to go out there and blast away, and it's getting ridiculous. Now, the police department can go there and do it indoor. I don't see why they have to stand out there in the woods and just shoot and shoot and shoot. It's ridiculous. So, as far as, I don't know if even the police range that you have out there, are you regulating that? Is there any, there's pollution going on there? What are you doing with the lead? Is that being monitored? I don't know.
Mr. Kimmel, do you want an answer to that question?
Which one?
The police range one?
Sure.
Yes. It's back in, I think it's all the way in the back of Sand and Gravel. I know it's a fenced-in area.
Well, in order to get there, you have to drive to Litchfield.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, and then you got to come halfway back back to Londonderry, which doesn't make much sense. You have to take a left to get there. If you take a right, you can get to the Manchester shooting range. Was it Was he going to answer the question?
He answered yes.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yes
okay.
to your
I'm sorry.
question.
Yes to your
and
questions,
It's being
yes.
regulated, the
It
letter's
is
being taken,
regulated.
everything that's properly supposed to be done by law is being done, I think is what he's saying.
Yeah. Well, what about the noise pollution?
I can't help you with that, Mr. Kimball.
I know.
I hear the same thing as you're hearing.
Okay, well, the other thing is, there are such things that are called suppressors. You can use those. That would help the problem. And they make those. But nobody seems to want to use that. I don't know. But, you know, it's, you know, you know, how am I supposed to continue this business? I've got, you know, weddings there. I had a wedding there the other day. Army officer got married. And all the time that he was standing out there being married, bang, 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 you know.
You didn't think we were honoring him, huh?
Apparently, you know.
I do know with
So-
regards to the police department, if you do have an event going on and everything and you notify them, my understanding is they make every best effort not to have anybody at the range during that period of time in which you let them know.
Well, that's a new one to me, but.
Is that right, Chief?
Yes, that is correct. And actually, Mr. Kimball, you're no doubt aware, since you've talked to folks at the police department multiple times about this, that we have made arrangements to assist you in the problems that you addressed. We don't shoot on weekends, or at least we try to avoid it as much as we can. You and I are going to...
Palm Sunday, you were out there
with all due
banging
respect,
away?
with all due respect, we've differed for the 4 years or the 3 years that range has been there, and we're going to continue to do so. What I'm telling you is, as you know, because you and I, actually not me, but Captain Dusso and you have had multiple conversations, very clear about how we operate out there. To the issue of safety, yes, we do assure that the lead is taken care of out there, and we make every effort to minimize the use of that range as much as we can. The good side of the range is, and no doubt the taxpayers will be glad to hear this, it's mitigated our training overtime considerably over the last few years. It's been a real benefit to the training of the officers, and allowed them to minimize the time that we spend shooting, and we really work at that. We've also limited the use by other agencies, and as you may recall, that was one of the high points of bringing the range here, which was donated completely by Mr. Charbonneau from Continental Paving, and among others. And we don't do that as much anymore. We're simply not able to, out of respect for the concerns that the legitimate concerns that Mr. Kimball raises.
So if Mr. Kimball's having an event and he gets in touch with...
Absolutely. Please do
So
call.
is that every weekend?
Hold on, ma'am, please. If you want to, that's fine. If you want to speak, you can come on up like everybody else, okay? We don't want to have cross conversations, too confusing.
Chief, I had a quick question for you. At the police range, what is the method for preventing projectiles from going down range?
We have, as you described, a series of berms. They're over 20 feet high. They're on both the sides and the back to prevent projectiles from exceeding any kind of safe problem. So we shoot directly into those berms, and as I mentioned, they're 20 feet high. We really work at range safety. I mean, that's a critical aspect of what we do. We use firearms a lot. So this is an area, a situation we wanted to address right off the bat.
Let me put you on the spot, and I can tell the public, I didn't ask the chiefs this, we didn't rehearse this. If you somehow lost the use of those berms as a backstop and had no backstop, and were just in the open woods, would you continue to target practice in that environment?
Unlike this gentleman, I would say no, we would not. The reason for that, however, is pretty clear. The two things we do are very different. What we do is utilize short spaces, lots of rounds. Mr. Kimball used 1,000 rounds. We don't do that. What happens is your hand gets tired after a little while. So typically we try to limit the use of rounds to under 100 per officer. The qualifying range that we use, or the qualifying course that we use, is a total of 74 rounds. So typically around 100 is a good training session. So if we send 5 people out there, there's probably around 500 rounds going downrange. Now typically, it takes about 40 minutes to an hour first off to do safety lecture and then to do that. So it's a lot of rounds downrange in a fairly constricted period of time.
Being qualified with a .45 pistol, I can attest to the fact that it gets heavy after a while. I need 2 hands to hold it up.
What other, I mean, you said pistols, but you're using rifles out there too, or?
Right, we use an AR-15.
You've got all kinds of, what?
We use an AR-15, which is a modified M16.
Telling me. The range that have any of you been out there to see this pile of sand?
At the end of your street, sir?
Have you seen that the police range?
Have I seen the police range?
Yeah. Have you been?
I have not seen the police range.
Has anybody been out there?
I haven't been there.
I have asked the chief, and what he suggested to me is that I arrange a time that I haven't been able to do yet, to have an officer take me out there because it's quite deep in the gravel.
Did you ever walk through the musquash to it?
I've walked through the musquash several times, and the street I'm on abuts the musquash.
Yeah, but have you ever walked where the range is? Off of, go down Fosia
Come out
Road?
like the back of your street and try to walk
No,
across?
go down Fosia Road. Walk out that way?
No, I don't think I've tried to go out that way. I mean, I do know the end of your street.
Okay. Well, when you go out there...
And I know your golf course.
Well, be careful when you're out there. What they've done out there is the tailings from the mining operation that they run out there, they've piled it up and up and up and up, and it's higher than the tree line of the musquash. And then they dug out little holes, so that's where it gets us 20 feet high, if you go out and look at it.
I'll make arrangements this week to go out and see it.
Yeah. And what's happening out there at that pit, they also bring in, concrete and sand from construction sites. They bring in old asphalt, and they pile it up and pile it up. And you go out there and take a look at it, because you'll be driving right by it when you go into this range. And that's up above the tree line. So it's nothing for me to hear tailgates banging all the time when they're dumping that stuff. And our range is on the other side, and you gotta listen to them bang all the time.
Okay.
I'm not against hunting. That's fine. That's what the indoor range is for. You can go there, sight your rifle in, not disturb people. I mean, does the city of Manchester have an outdoor range? I mean, we're getting more and more people here, and we can't, as taxpayers, can't even use that musquash, and it's ridiculous. So I'm gonna leave it there at the moment, but I just, hope you do something reasonable.
But didn't you say that you want to allow hunting to go on in the musquash, don't you?
Hunting is, hunting is hunting.
No, I understand, but if...
Hunting is regulated by, the Fish and Game Club, and they have to have a license and all that. And they're out there, during hunting season, fine. And in fact, you could close down the musquash during that time or let people know that, in fact, most everybody knows not to go out into the musquash when hunting season is going until it's over, especially for the deer. But there's a herd of deer out there they haven't shot yet, I'll tell you. But anyways, I'll leave it at that. And
Okay.
Hope I don't have to get into. I hope I don't have to get into the law of it, but we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kimball.
Good evening, gentlemen. Dan Bouchard, 8 O'Connell Drive, Londonderry. I was listening to all this, and I started reminiscing back in living in Londonderry 31 years and police officer for 28 years. I don't recall too many calls at the musquash. I do recall a lot of calls West Road, of other gravel pits we have in town. And it's not from people that live in the community, but usually people from out of state, out of our town, just looking for a place to shoot. And I'll tell you, Mr. Baldessaro talked about it, about the littering. It happens a lot. And I used to get very frustrated driving up on a scene, seeing them shooting bottles. And I would write them for littering. Okay, and I'm sure our police officers do that now. You know, we have good trained professionals, and, you know, they uphold the law. I just had one concern, was that our conservation officer mentioned that when they're on the musquash, they can use shotguns, because we can't use rifles in Londonderry to hunt. We can only use shotguns. If you do a designated shooting area, are you going to limit it just to shotguns, or are they going to be able to use rifles? Now they have a greater distance to travel. So just food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Betsy Mekachonis, 44 Kimball Road, and I also want to speak to the noise pollution, because that is quite annoying. I've lived there for 23 years, and every day, all summer long, a nice summer day you want to spend in your yard, you can't, because it just keeps going and going and going. Allowing hunting is one thing. It's one shot, two shots. When it gets to target practice, which 2 weekends ago, there were some people out right behind Fosha Road there, and they were target shooting. And they went on for almost an hour, and it was just constant shooting. It doesn't allow us to enjoy the peace that we like to have in Londonderry. And I have to agree with Tom on the noise. Nobody seems to be bringing up the noise pollution issue, and we have to endure it. Several people in my neighborhood are second shift workers, third shift workers. They try to sleep during the day. They're interrupted constantly with this noise. If you allow target practice that close to residential units, people just don't. You can't enjoy your life. We have the Fish and Game, that's a target practice place. It's already there. Why can't people go use that? We can't do anything to change that at this point. They provide a safe place to do it. They provide instruction. There's no instruction for the people going to do target practice in the musquash anywhere. They just go out there and shoot. The Fish and Game place has a program for people to learn, and that seems to me the safer route to go. I have letters from 2 other residents as well, which I can leave for you, and that's what I have.
Well, thank you for coming forward. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, Don Jorgensen, 6 Rolling Ridge Road. It's interesting to hear the conversation here tonight, so many points of view regarding civil rights, or civil liberties, I should say, the Constitution, etc. But I'm not really approaching this on that basis. As far as I'm concerned, and I live 2.5 blocks from the musquash as well, I must admit that when the hunting season starts, while I go out to musquash a lot on either riding a bike or walking, when hunting season starts, I stop walking out there. And it's nice to assume that every hunter out there is cautious, thoughtful, well-trained, and with that knowledge will use it only to shoot at game. If that be the case, it would be relatively safe. But I don't necessarily trust everybody to have that or carry themselves in that manner. I don't trust everybody any more than I trust everybody to be honest, truthful, or intelligent. Sadly, we can't. So I don't go out there, so the musquash is closed off for me during that period of time, and I'm only speaking for myself. I do know others that approach it in the same manner.
But even that is, I think, secondary to the extent that safety issues, although primary, can be addressed simply by not going to that area at the time. The principal area of concern that I have is tranquility. Londonderry was a place away from a lot of noise, the hustle and bustle of the city, a place where I could go and enjoy the countryside without having to listen to a cacophony of war that is produced with a lot of weapons going off on a constant basis. And I do carry the distinction, I do think it's important to address the distinction between an occasional shot that a hunter is taking at an animal, and given the results of what I see coming out of the musquash anyway, it's certainly not a major burden in terms of the shots. Number one, I don't hear a lot of shooting that goes on during the hunting season that's from hunters, because you can generally tell whether somebody's shooting a slug out of a shotgun or if they're shooting a high-powered rifle or a pistol. You can usually tell the difference. But what I'm concerned about is that if we put another range on the musquash, apparently some discussion off of Foster Road at this point, then we're going to have a constant litany of shooting that's going on a constant basis. And that to me seems absurd, because that's an impediment to anybody's tranquility. And certainly I think that's an insult to anybody that's around that area. So if indeed you're considering putting up a range, first of all, I would tend to agree with Mr. Kimball, although we've never met or talked before. Hey, they're inside ranges where that sound doesn't travel anywhere. That's where they should go. I don't think they should go to a range where they're not going to have supervision and training, which is available to this gentleman's site as well. He certainly certainly has available the type of training necessary for people to come out and shoot. And for that reason, I think that there should be some major constraints imposed, not on hunting. Hunting, using a shotgun for an occasional shot to shoot game is certainly substantially different than a massive assault of shots that are taking place at a range. And I think that's the concern that we have. Control the noise rather than leaving it open to us having the joy of waking up in the morning to that. Gentlemen?
So you don't want a range in the musquash, a target shooting range? Is that what I heard?
I want another one, because I think there are effectively two already.
Okay.
And I don't think there should be one I don't think we should have one unsupervised, where anybody can walk in and take his AK-47 or his rifle, or her rifle, or AK-47, or whatever, and shoot at will. Because I think that is an intrusion onto anybody's life based on the noise that it provides to the people in that community.
And how would we supervise it?
That's a problem I can't resolve for you. But then I wasn't elected to the town council to come up with that decision.
Okay.
But that's what I think your responsibility is.
Joe?
No questions, thank you.
Tom? Thanks. John?
So, Don, no range, target shooting okay?
Pardon?
Target shooting and skeet shooting okay? Year-round? Anywhere in the musquash?
I think we already have two.
Okay.
I think that's enough.
As I said, I'm still at that point where, I'm close to tabling this thing because I'm not getting enough answers. I mean, I want to get the co-recreate, and I don't know the answer.
I think the issue on co-recreate is fine. I think that's something we need to look at. I certainly have no problem with it in concept. But I really object to if that co-recreation creates an added burden on me or anybody living in that area because of the noise pollution. That, I think, is a burden, and I think that that's effectively what we need to talk about. It's not about hunting in the musquash. To me, I'd be the first one raising all kinds of holy hell if somebody said you can't hunt, because I happen to believe in it.
I don't think we even entertain it here.
No, and I don't think it's ever come up in a conversation other than some people mentioning it here that have come up to speak. So no, I don't see that that's an issue. But I think the noise pollution that a range in that area creates is a burden and is an unnecessary burden on the citizens of this town. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Okay, anybody else?
Steve Holmesy, 16 Royal Lane. I'll be quick. I've lived near that area for about 19 years. To me, it's always been an issue. The noise is one thing, but to me, the real problem is every question I asked of that issue, the answer I got was, I don't know. I mean, we don't know anything. We don't know if it's going to be 50 people up there, 0, if it's going to be 7 days a week. I can tell you that Saturday morning, 7:30, someone was up there popping off rounds. And I only say that because they were in succession. And just to make a joke out of it somewhat, that when I talked to a neighbor, he goes, well, how do you know that was in the Musquash? I don't. You're right. I mean, the whole issue from top to bottom is one gigantic, I don't know. And that's just, that's what I have a problem with. I mean, everyone's that's advocating for it. Well, how are you going to feel when there's 50 residents from all of the towns using that area? Are you going to feel welcome in there? I mean, that could happen. I mean, that's the reality of it. We've kind of opened the jar. It was always a bit of an issue, but I mean, I talked to 3 neighbors who are gun owners, and literally, honestly, said to me, "I didn't know you could." And that it came over me that okay, well now you know, everyone knows, and what happens now? I mean, whatever level it was at, it could be here. And that's what's a bit of a scary situation for me living there.
Well, like the Salem witch trials, they could just go away.
Could, but, reality is, it's already started. To me, last Saturday morning was, there it is. It's going to continue on this path. I mean, I've always, I've lived there for 19 years. As I said, I've always brought my kids in when I've heard it. A few times my dog's gotten loose and run into the Musquash, and I'd run after him. I was always fearful. I mean, a large tan animal with somebody running behind him. It's just, I'm not trying to make light of it, but to me it's a serious issue. I don't know how to put a lid on it, contain it. I know you're struggling with it, but I don't know the answer. To ban it all, or to just curtail it, or. It is an issue, and
if you ban target shooting there, what's the guarantee that it's going to stop?
If you ban it,
that it's going to stop. Or if you put it in a designated area, what's the guarantee that it's going to be somebody's going to do it in that area?
Well, there isn't. I would guess you can't guarantee it.
Right. And if the people that were the initiation of this conversation, the people shooting the stereo there. If there was a regulation beforehand, do you really think that was going to stop them? If they wanted to go out and shoot a stereo, I mean, it doesn't seem like hunters. It seems like kids.
Well, I think the fear of a penalty would at least keep it down, but when it realistically is now a free-for-all, anybody can come. Anybody can do it.
I mean, it's against the law to rob banks, but people still rob banks.
It's against the law to litter, and people still litter too, so, I get evidence of that every day, so. And there's a lot of things I'd like to do to people that litter, so, we can't regulate everything.
Adultery is against the law. That happens every once in a while.
I have a little bit different point of view on this thing. This whole thing, we didn't know there was a problem until a month ago. And it's kind of like, I mean, I know this is a sore subject for some, but it's kind of like this whole trash thing we went through a couple of years ago. We didn't know we had a problem, and then they came in and we said, hey, we got a problem. And, and you got to decide tonight that we're going to fix this problem. Everybody gets new trash cans. Well, that went over really great. So, and if anybody else wants to have public comment, I mean, I'll yield to anybody, but I'm at the point where I don't have clear enough answers. I want some more information. I think Mr. Holmesley brings up a good point, and the internet's a good and a bad thing. I mean, and meeting the gentleman from Fish and Game, people are looking for a place to shoot. Okay, so now we've put this all out in the press and said right now, we allow target shooting and skeet shooting in the Musquash. Maybe that's the right thing to do. I mean, I don't know. But I think we got a lot more work to do on this before we can make a vote. And instead of making mistakes we've made in the past, making a vote, not having enough information. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
A council doing that? I couldn't believe that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other questions or concerns?
Comment?
Tom?
Somebody, I forget who it was, brought up an option, and that was we should think about probably is, should we restrict target shooting to licensed hunters? Because the licensed hunters have been through the safety courses and I forget who, I don't know who suggested that was here, but.
I don't know that our 3 cops on patrol could take care of it.
I'm just saying, that's, whatever, if we're gonna, continue to consider this, that was something that was suggested that didn't get a lot of discussion, so.
I think the gentleman from Fish and Game suggested that. He did. He's nodding yes. No, the gentleman in the uniform.
The officer.
I don't know. I think anything's worth consideration. I don't, as this thing stands right now, I think we have to amend it or table it but I definitely think we need more information.
Council? You got
Are
John?
we all done with public
Tom?
comment, or?
Well, we can go back whenever we want. It's the council prerogative. So what do you think, Tom? Like, we want everybody to get input in here. So John's looking for more info. Tom's throwing that idea out there. What do you guys think?
I just think the way the amendment's written right now, I don't think it's useful. I'd like to see it tabled indefinitely. That's what I'd like to see.
Okay, Tom?
I don't think it's, I'm not in favor of banning it in all the properties, and I don't think anybody, all town property.
I don't think any of us are.
But that's how it's written now, so.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I don't know if I'd table it indefinitely. I think we still need to address it at some point. I mean, if we put it out, Dave's not here, but I think we need we need further direction. We need a couple answers.
well, we can table this ordinance as written, and then have Dave draft something new.
Yep, we can do that.
Because right now, I can tell you, from my point of view, I'm not for this ordinance. I hear some of the concerns, which to me is a whole different issue from what was presented here and what this was trying to accomplish. Because honestly, I wasn't aware of any issues up until that came before us, and then we have this ordinance in front of us, and now I'm hearing from other residents that are concerned about other issues that may or may not be related to the musquash. We don't know. So,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, then may I make a motion then?
If I may, if you could hold your motion for just 1 second, you may want to see if there's any more public comment before we.
sure. Okay, John. Yep. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Glenn Douglas, 6 Overlook. I just want to bring up the range thing. I used to be a member of Londonderry Fish and Game. I actually dropped my membership because landowners in Litchfield blocked our road, wouldn't let us in. We had to sue them. It took 3 years, and I couldn't really shoot. I understand the noise thing, but I also, from someone who has 3 kids and doesn't have a problem with owning a gun or learning to shoot, every time you throw something on there that says, well, you should just go shoot indoors. I used to shoot up in Manchester every Friday night. Right now, it's $16 an hour for a non-member. I always shoot with a friend. That's $32 an hour. You can get a membership, but it's $190. You can get a membership at London Fish and Game, but it's going to cost you about $150. Pelham's going to cost you $300. You can't do it. I haven't shot for 3 years because I never have the $190 to sign up. And honestly, up until a month ago, there was no problem, with the exception of noise pollution from people around the area. But Londonderry Fish and Game's been there for a long, long time.
This has been in the papers. It's been on the internet blogs. One that claims 17,000 readers. Where's everyone that wants it stopped? There's been a handful of people. It's a non-issue, right? And if you're going to think about opening a range, one of the reasons I don't go to Manchester anymore is because Manchester lets anyone that has a license and no criminal record come in and shoot. I don't want to be next to some yahoo who picks up a .45 and just starts shooting. I don't want to be on a range. I've been at Londonderry fishing game with my son. I turned around, someone was pointing a .45 at my chest, and I said, "You're breaking the rules." "What rule?" "Muzzle's pointed downrange all the time." "It's not loaded." "I don't know that." We packed up and left. You get into the issue of a town-sponsored, town-run range, I think you're going to have all kinds of problems. It wasn't a problem before, and honestly, up until a month ago, I had no idea that I used to be able to legally shoot on South Road. No clue. I lived a quarter mile from there for 7 years. Not a clue. Someone complained, and now we're being told it's just Conservation Commission. Originally, we were told it was members of the public that went to the Conservation Commission, so it's not an issue. You know, just, it's 10 o'clock, and I think someone else said, you know, there's a lot more important things we can do. I'd say drop it, and if there's a room full of people, then change your mind. But right now, there's not a room full of people saying we want this stopped.
Thanks, Glenn.
Real quick, mine's more of a parliamentary inquiry here. On your tabling motion, I mean, some of us have been here now. This is the second time we've been here. Now, when a tabling motion means this doesn't come up any other time.
No.
No, be brought up. Does that mean it's gone?
This ordinance would be dead.
We'd have
It'll
to
be dead.
create a new one.
So why waste the time and table? Why not just vote it down and move on? And that way it's over and done with. Because the table,
It's done both ways, Al.
yeah, but the council has the right on table of motion. I mean, I don't know where your rules are coming out of, whether you use Mason or Robert's rules, but a table of motion lays it on the table to bring it back up.
If we table it indefinitely, it doesn't. What we're asking for is Dave to research and rewrite it because we don't like the way that this one is represented.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. A table of motion brings it back up. It goes back to the manager, rewrites it, and comes back up. We're not born yesterday. You either kill the bill properly, and unless some don't want to stand up and vote for, you know, against or for, I mean, I'm just telling you the proper
We can
procedure.
vote it down and still tell the town manager to go back and rewrite it.
You can, but at least get rid of this, so we
What
don't
it-
have to come
what
back
it
and
very
worry
simply is
that it's
that
still
if
there.
we table it, what we're letting the community know is if we vote it down, the community's gonna say, geez, it's not still an active conversation, they're just telling the town manager to look at it. But if we table it, what we're saying to the community is that we're still looking into it.
Then the
Right? We don't
proper
agree with
answer
what's written
then,
today.
a table does not kill it then, that's what.
Wait, just before you go, we passed rules of order for the council. And according to Rule 5, well, I assume it's Rule 5.
Yep.
Rule 5B, a councilor may move to table any pending matter of business. The motion to table shall be seconded and requires approval by a majority of the present councilors. The motion is not debatable. Approval of the motion is equivalent to defeating the question tabled. Successive motions to table a matter of business previously voted on and defeated shall not be permitted.
So there you go.
There's the answer then, so it's.
That's
it's
what I was
dead.
trying to do.
It's the same thing.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because the parliamentary inquiry, you know, on this.
That's why we put
it's
these,
totally
that's why we
different.
put these rules in place.
Okay, thank you, that's the answer I needed, thank you.
So, okay. All right, so we'll bring it back to the council. We've debated it. We've had a fair amount of input, so what are we doing?
I'd like to make a motion.
Table it indefinitely. I think
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Second.
I would suggest that as part of the motion that we ask the town manager to use our GIS resources to select some options.
Well, we can do that after the motion. Let's just leave that separate from this, and we'll just direct Dave to do that as a separate part of business. Okay? So we have a motion. We have a second?
Yep.
Who's the second? You just motioned. Or did John motion?
John
All right, John motion? I didn't hear that.
I don't care who motions, okay? Do you want a motion? Motion.
Okay, that's fine. Are you
Okay,
second?
So,
Second.
your motion is to table.
Right, indefinitely.
Second, okay. All those in favor of tabling ordinance 2011-07 signifying by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative, 5-0, motion's tabled. As a separate part of business, how does the council feel about giving Dave direction to look at the noise pollution that some of the residents are concerned about?
I think we have a few things. We have noise pollution. I think Tom's got something. I think we want a definitive answer on insurance.
Mhm.
You know, I think we want a few different answers, and then we
Okay.
want him to get those, bring them back to us, and then recraft something that maybe makes some sort of, sense, or we can just move on. If we can't come up with something that makes something
Right.
some more sense.
I think at this point, I honestly, this is my 2 cents, I think that it's going to be very hard to, I mean, I've thought about this a lot, like all you guys have done. You know, while I understand the concerns on one side, and this isn't even a Second Amendment thing, to me, I don't know how it's enforceable. You'd need I think you'd need a cop at every corner looking to see someone shooting something, and I just think it's almost impossible.
Then we have to find out what we need to do as far as posting and everything else to notify the public. We have to follow through on it still.
Yeah, I'm not saying not to, but all I'm trying to say is at the end of the day, we may not be able to come up with anything.
That's entirely possible.
Well, I understand the issue of enforceability, but I think that also you can't acquiesce to, if something is going on that's unsafe or people are fearful of, just because it's difficult to enforce, I don't think, we have a responsibility to still to try to address it.
I
We
don't
just can't.
disagree.
We just can't walk away from it.
I don't disagree, and I'm not saying to do that, Tom.
So I just want to make it clear that because something is difficult to enforce, it doesn't become an untouchable issue for anybody, whether
Understood.
it's this or anything else.
Right.
So let's give Sue really
So,
clear
yeah, so
direction,
why don't you go first, and we'll go right down the line for
So,
concerns.
What we want to know is a definitive answer from our insurance carrier. So that's mine.
Okay, Tom.
And first, let me elaborate. I think the question to the insurance carrier is not, I think it's not a black and white thing. It's will we be covered or not? That's not the issue. I think Representative Baldessaro created the scenario that was the issue. I think the issue is what is going to be the impact to our rates, and will this cost the taxpayers more now that we have not? See, we have knowledge. Before, if something happened, if somebody was accidentally shot or somebody was accidentally killed, I mean, if we didn't know anything about the practice, then that represents a certain level of liability. Now that we know the issue and we've been educated on it, and if we choose to do nothing about it and something happens, I think it's been implied that there's a different level of liability that the taxpayers are incurring. So I guess we want some. So I'm expanding the insurance question to understand what that.
That's where our attorney applied.
Right. But I didn't want it to be captured as, are we covered or not covered? It's not that simple.
So that's what Bart had implied that we may have issues around that.
Question, the suggestion I would have for the town manager is to, we have a great GIS system and tool set available to us, to try to find some options of venues for target shooting that would minimize exposure to residents or businesses in terms of noise pollution, and also that would be safe. We did hear from the chief, and I think could read between the lines from our representative from the Fish and Game Club, that target shooting without the benefit of something to stop downrange projectiles is probably not a good idea. I'm kind of a simple guy, and I kind of figured that out on my own. So, so I think if we could find a place to safely shoot, because I do believe, I don't want to ban target shooting. I believe that ultimately target shooting will result in safer gun use because people become familiar with their weapons. But I know that safety around target shooting is a real challenge, and it's important, and we can help the shooters if we provide them something to shoot into that's safe. as opposed to letting them shoot indiscriminately in any direction towards any habitat downrange. And we're talking about hunting in the musquash with shotguns. We're not talking about target shooting with shotguns, although that's in there. It's in the ragu jar. Shotguns are in there. We're talking about now target shooting. We're talking about rifles and pistols. So, I mean, there's not a lot of downrange damage that a shotgun can do, but a high-powered rifle, a 30-06 or a high-caliber pistol can go pretty far downrange. And this would obviously be an accidental incident, but things happen, and the professionals who know how to shoot, who teach shooting, who monitor the safety of shooting, would never, ever allow target shooting without proper safety backstops and berms around that. I commented to former First Sergeant Baldessaro over there. If either one of us had troops in the field, and we said, let's do some target shooting right over there, we'd both be court-martialed for not doing it properly and in a safe way. And the reason is because it's a known science. Safety in target shooting is a known science, and there's a lot of it out there. And there are a lot of rock-solid NRA citizens that know it and would help us with it. And we have Fish and Game, and we have officers that are trained in it that would, I'm sure, help and consult and teach us the right way to do it. We had a description about how to put proper signage around it to prevent people from accidentally crossing into the line of fire. That's important too. So I mean, there are a lot of resources we can draw upon, and I would ask the town manager to help us, give us some potential venues to pick from, and we can put them up on the screen so everybody can see what we're talking about. And we can get comments saying, oh, that's too close to this neighborhood, or that's too close to this business, or whatever. And we should get that feedback. And it's not just the musquash. We're talking about anywhere on town-owned property.
Okay. Tom, do you have?
Well, I guess my concern would be if you're going to do that, is now you're going to be putting a known noise problem to somebody else's neighborhood.
We were thinking about behind Buckingham. You know what, I think we just get the information, and we may just say we're not doing it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I think, the people that came here with concerns are gonna be just another neighbor.
I don't disagree.
Okay. Joe?
I'm all set.
Move to the next one.
Okay. So you have the notes from Tom
I
and from
do.
John?
Yep.
And if the concerns come up, then obviously you'll have your input into it, so, okay. All right, let's see, that's it. Motion to come out of public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, chair votes affirmative, 5-0. We are out of public hearing. Old business.
Hey, folks, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for all your input. We do appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, old business, I believe we took care of that during the public comment section.
Okay. Now, Tom, when did you guys want to get that info to me? You going to send them an email?
Yeah, I think
I'll sort
we
through it.
need to do that before the next meeting, so you need to probably have that, I would say, by Thursday this week.
All right, so is the council okay with getting me that information on who you support for the committee?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. John, you good with it?
Oh, yeah.
All right, all right. Okay, so that's that. So we've addressed that. We'll have that done by Thursday, hopefully, and address it in our next meeting. All right, old business is done. New business, street renaming issue.
Hey, before we get into this, and I know they've been waiting here and everything, this used to be something handled by the planning board. After this one, we should probably think about sending it back to them. They're the planners.
True.
Let them handle the renaming stuff, and it's really not necessary for us
When
to
did
do
that become ours, anyway?
2 years ago.
Was it?
You guys swapped that with the PUD?
What?
The PUD, yeah.
I think it was like 2 years ago, but it was always been a planning board issue for like 20-some-odd
I
years.
think it was right around the time when we started chartering ball teams, too. Instead of the Recreation Commission.
That little zinger there, baby. Yeah, right.
That was a zinger.
That's a zinger.
So maybe after this, we want to think about sending that back. And we don't have to do anything other than just send it back.
I like that idea.
Well, there was just no, there was always a
It
planning
makes,
board.
it makes sense, right? And it's a lot easier for them to address.
There was one council that wanted control. And so, but we'll send it back.
All right, that works for me. Maybe we could,
I thought we just have to ask Sue. Sue, can you
Sue, how do we do that? Yeah.
Street naming back to the planning board?
Can you talk to Dave on what's the procedure to do that? And maybe this is it, if we give you a consensus that the council's okay with that. Let's do that right now, as a matter of fact. Are you okay with? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we have 5.
Consensus of the council to move
So,
street naming back to its
can you have Dave
location
make that happen?
of the planning board. So that you don't have to sit here through all this.
All right.
Well, it was always on
Planning
planning
board,
board,
yeah.
which is where it belongs.
Yeah. And not to mention, planning staff is already there, staff's already there to address it, so it just makes more sense instead of having a separate meeting for you guys to come here to address this. So, anyway,
Try to make it easier.
it's a house cleaning.
We can run it by Dave, John. I think the issue is that the RSAs require the governing body to take action.
Well, we'll see what happens is that the planning board says, they make the recommendation, here's the new names, we say yea or nay.
Thanks, April.
Yeah, we can talk it over with Dave.
Yeah.
Or is it within the spirit of the RSA for us to delegate our authority to the planning board? I think in some cases it is.
Yeah,
I
we'll
think
find
it
out,
is,
but
yeah.
that's where it always resided before the last year.
Yeah. Actually, I do remember that.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
So anyway,
Okay.
sorry about that, John.
Sure.
So, John, you're here. We have an interest. I thought
Yeah,
this was very interesting, actually.
Yeah, where we are today, Mr. Chairman, is we have kind of a King Solomon decision for you to make today. This is regarding the trio of streets, Harvey Road, Hovey Road, and Hardy Road. Again, it's continuing the action of the Street Naming System Task Force. We've been in business for about 2 years now. We've changed a good number of streets. We're working our way down the list, and right now, again, we're on the trio, Hardy, Hovey. You can imagine they're all homonyms of each other. It can be confusing over the airwaves and difficult to dispatch to. The approach that we've taken to remedy these is that we went forward with a recommendation to change Harvey Road, leave in place Hovey and Hardy, and the understanding was that Hovey and Hardy by themselves were distinguishable enough that we could leave them in place if Harvey Road were removed from the mix. The recommendation that we presented to the residents of Harvey Road was to split the road into segments and rename those segments based on the existing alignment. So there's a large map over there, and I know you all have reduced maps in the packet. But for instance, the part that extends north to Pettingill Road would be renamed High Range Road. From Pettingill Road to Grenier Field Road would bear the name Pettingill Road. From Grenier Field north to the Manchester line would bear the name Grenier Field Road. It would be readdressed. These are, the character of these streets is that they're all commercial. There's a lot of businesses on those streets. When we went to the public hearing, we learned that there would be a significant cost impact to those businesses. And one of the business owners is here right behind, he was behind me, and who spoke to a lot of the businesses. He came up with a total cost exceeding $130,000. And it's higher than that? And I think you have information from the gentleman who owns Wirebuilt. I think he sent info to you as well. So, excellent. So again, there are significant costs to the business community. The alternative to this approach would be to rename both Hardy and Hovey Roads. Those would be given unique names that, of course, are consistent with the 911 guidelines. By their character, those are residential streets. So again, it's a whole different level of change to the residents. When we discussed this with Dave, he was of the opinion that this was a policy issue for the board to decide. So we'll put it before you. The question I would ask is if the council would be more supportive of changing the name of Harvey Road over Hardy and Hovey, and we'll take action with the direction of the council.
I'm sorry. Okay. You're asking us to support changing Harvey?
I'm asking for your opinion, which recommendation you would support.
Because we have several people that don't want Harvey to be changed, so I was just
That's
wondering.
correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you were on the same page with them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, we'll bring it to the council. So I guess we'll start at this end. John?
I don't want to change any of it. I mean, I think it's a historic value to Javi and Hardy. and I think, there's got to be something said for that. I understand completely what the business owners are saying, that they don't want to change and it's going to cost them a lot of money. I don't think they should have to change. These are three very distinctly different parts of town. I'm of the opinion, I don't see the necessity. I mean, I know 911's demanding it, but, I got to be further convinced. That's my point of view.
So stop beating around the bush. Tell us how you think.
I'm done.
Tom, you're next.
The question is this coming from our local dispatch or from the state?
No, these were originally came from 911, so they were part of the original list of names that were submitted to us.
So that's from the state, then?
Correct. Yeah, I think, Cindy can attest. I mean, it is.
I had a question, not to interrupt, but Cindy, you've been a dispatcher, now retired.
I'm not retired yet.
Oh, you are getting close.
Getting close.
For many years now. Has this ever been an issue with Hardy? I mean, they, like John said, to his point, they seem pretty distinct. I don't know how the guys would mess that one up.
The issue is not so much with the initial dispatch. I think I can speak for both the fire department dispatchers and for the police department dispatchers. We know that these things are an issue over the airways. So our dispatchers will dispatch it by spelling the name or distinguishing between them. We just had a call, in fact, last Friday. I believe it was either Thursday or Friday of last week. And the call was for an incident on Hardy Road, H-A-R-D David, Y Young, okay? And that's how the dispatcher gave it out. Unfortunately, as it goes down the line, when officers or other responding units are responding out there on the road, they don't hear the initial dispatch. They may hear a fellow officer or a fellow fire apparatus saying, I'm responding to Hardy Road, and they think it's Harvey Road. And in fact, that happened last week, where a fellow officer all of a sudden came over the radio and said, I'll be responding to Harvey Road, H-A-R-V-E-Y Road. And the dispatcher had to correct him. That becomes compounded when you have mutual aid responses or when it's filtered through a 911 dispatcher.
Question is, would all three of these roads are called roads? Is there any help to the dispatch if we changed the road, one of them to street and one of them to avenue?
The issue again coming through 911. Many times, particularly in an emergency situation, certainly not on all calls, but certainly in an emergency situation, particularly with the advent of cell phones, given the location of Harvey Road, Harvey with a V Victor, those cell phones cut out. So you may not get the last designation anyway. You may not get the difference between road, way, lane, avenue, whatever.
Mr. Chairman, my recommendation that we pay close attention to the cost that our businesses have to bear on something like this. That
doesn't seem reasonable.
Our community in the past has not had a reputation for being friendly to businesses, and I think a lot of us have worked hard to try to fix that. And I think this falls into that category. I certainly don't want to be inconvenient to the residents. So the residents might be inconvenienced, but not to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars that a business may be inconvenienced. And that's not an inconvenience. That's maybe a job or two for somebody. So I guess I would, if we have to make some changes, and I'm not convinced, I would hope that we could leave Harvey Road unchanged.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Tom?
If you guys know, I know I'm not sure anybody from the post office is here, but if you change the name of a road, how long do they keep forwarding mail? Let's say 154 Harvey Road.
First class is
Yeah,
1 year.
they keep it up to a year.
Really?
For
Okay.
first class is a year.
All right, well, just a little thing I know and something we all want to avoid in life is an IRS audit. The IRS audit's 2 years behind the current year. And the current year is actually a year behind what you think it is because you wait a year before you file. So, let's see, today, 2011, they're auditing in 2009 returns. And I filed with my Harvey Road address on it. The notice ain't getting sent, the mail ain't getting there. And you know what the IRS does? Because they're understanding group of guys over there. When you don't respond to them within their 90 days, well, all changes are done and
Yeah, I
tough for
can't
you.
that'd definitely be a question for Jay Hooley.
Okay, so.
He was here too, really.
I bet you that bill would find its way, though.
Yeah. It's amazing how
With a
that
final
happens,
notice,
yeah.
Well, you start accumulating interest, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Accumulated compound daily.
I mean, that seems to me a tremendous practical problem for a lot of people. All sorts of, legal notices and stuff like that.
I see what you mean, Tom. I think that certainly if I was a renter 2 years ago. I filed 2 years ago, I filed a tax return at my apartment. And now at my house, it's a whole new address. Somehow or other, I think the IRS would find me. I think it's probably the case here, but again, I think the final answer would have to come from the post office. But I think, actually, to answer John's question, I think that from the task force, the public safety point of view, I think we'd all, if I can speak for the consensus, I don't think that we can ignore the issue. I do think it's imperative. I do think it's in our charge to move ahead and rename both Hardy and Hovey. So again, if we could have the council's approval, I think that's the direction we'd be heading now.
And because of the way they do business, why a bill says it's going to cost them $59,000 to change.
I think we just suggested it's not to change.
Right.
Harvey.
Correct.
Said Hardy and Hovey.
Oh, I thought you said Hardy.
Correct, with the residential streets.
We can just write him a check out of the slush fund.
I guess, yeah.
Don't tell him about that.
Yeah, that's supposed to be a secret.
Yeah, thank you.
I actually think it's imperative to change with New England accent the way it is. These 3 words, my kids always tell me I never pronounce the R, so it's Harvey, and Hardy. So I mean, there's no way you're going to get that over the line. I mean, I've never heard it coming over the line, but I can just imagine just the way I speak. Oh, we're going to give an
Speak of
example.
the
Good. But definitely, I would go with the Hovey and Hardy changing, as opposed to changing Harvey, just from the financial aspect of it.
Mr. Clark, you have a question?
I have definite comment on those.
We're gonna find out the historic.
We're gonna follow the historic value of Harvey, and Hovey.
Darn right.
Told you.
Listen, don't sugarcoat it, just tell us how you feel.
He's not using his cane either. I hope your wife sees you again.
Oh, shush.
How are you getting home tonight, by the way?
I guess I'll have to walk if you all don't like what I'm going to say.
It's all right, Brian will take you.
Okay.
Hardy Road.
Harvey Road was named something else when I was a child. So changing Harvey Road is, no matter how much it costs anybody, is the way to do it. Because if you try to change Reed Road, or Page Road, or Clark Road, I have about 200 relatives that will come and discuss it with you violently. It's Hovey Road and Hardy Road. Hovey and Hardy are family roads. Harvey is not family road. It was a skim milk road when I was a kid. So change it. You don't like this, but change it back to skim milk road. We're fine. I don't know how many Hoveys are left, and I don't know how many Hardys are left around, but if they ever found out that they had their names changed, as my family would find out.
Reed, would it be objectionable, you think, to change like Hovey Road to Hovey Street? Would that be objectionable?
No, of course not. Of course not, or Hovey Way, or anything like that. But she said very clearly that sometimes the way and the street and the road and the lane
get wiped out of the conversation. So that, no, it'd be nice to do that. That would be the easy way out, believe me.
So John, you still, even if we tell you to go, you still have to go to the residents, and they're gonna be involved in the naming process. They're gonna have a point of view.
Correct.
Which is
Yeah.
probably gonna be not dissimilar in some ways to Mr. Clark's point of view.
Correct. And I think that the residents may be happy with Hovey Street, but I don't think it would meet the naming standards that we're looking for. So I don't think Hovey Street or Hovey Way is one of the options.
But you still have to go through the process of going to them.
Correct, yeah, they'll all receive certified notices that a change is coming. We'll go through public hearing, and we'll look for name suggestions from them.
Hopefully they won't come back and all say, we don't want to change it, because then we got a problem.
They probably will.
They probably will.
Okay, well then, I mean, that's what I think they're gonna say. That's why I told you what I said then to say. I think they're gonna go down the path of saying you're taking historic value away from the town, and that's the path they're gonna go down.
You can use that right next to Reed if you want to speak there, that'd be great.
And I'm not being disrespectful, but I had a little surgery today, so I got to keep my hand on. My name is Larry Thibodeau, and I own Hampshire Fire Protection and J&L Realty. We're both on Harvey Road. And I'm, I guess, the one that's been kind of spearheading, going around to all the different businesses. The last public meeting that we had here, there was actually some residents, people that were here, that said, please, don't affect the businesses. We need the businesses in town. Change the residences. There was a couple of people that spoke to that at the last public meeting. So they could find something that, I had suggested a couple of names, like I think I had Hovey Lane. Maybe that's not going to work, but that was one that I threw in, and I had Hardy Road to Harding Road. Maybe that's not going to work. But I actually did go out there and counted every house that was on those two areas. There's actually 64 homes on Hardy Road and 58 homes on Hovey Road. And I've identified 36 businesses on Harvey Road. And I actually went to every single business and compiled costs. Some of them I've gotten, some of them I haven't. I'm up to $176,000 right now between the people that I have actually sent me information.
How many is that roughly?
That's about half of them. The latest one I got was just today from Concentra, because they've got a ton of stuff, medical forms, all $48,000. On the other side of the spectrum, East Coast Flooring sent me some stuff today, $1,600, more business cards than that kind of stuff. Hampshire Fire, we're at $11,000. I had my gals' business cards, inspection forms. So there's a big impact to the businesses, especially in this economy. I mean, we really don't need that hit right now, frankly. So if we could impress upon you folks to stick with us, and I know the residences, there's going to be some complaints, but their cost impact is like absolutely nothing.
I don't think we're advocating, doing anything. I think we're agreeing with you as far as the businesses are concerned.
I think you are too.
I think we got a tough road to hoe here with the residences, and I think we're just going to have to work our way through it.
Well, that's all I had. I really appreciate your time.
I think coming from our end, I don't think the issue, to John's point, I don't think the issue is going to be with the council, because we're very aware of the situation in the economy and what it means to businesses. I think the problem you're going to have is the state's going to be inflexible, and they're going to be the ones that are going to probably push back.
Well, the state will push back for Harvey or Hardy more than anything else, probably. As far
Hard to say.
As the businesses. I mean, I think that it's imperative that the council makes that recommendation that we don't affect the businesses in town. I mean, we could easily, if I got everybody's information, we could easily be at $250,000.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of loot.
I don't think any of us are disagreeing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. Any questions for me?
So,
Go ahead, do you have any questions for him?
No.
Okay.
Maybe there's some stationery companies looking for your business.
I guess it's a lot more than that, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming forward.
Mr. Chairman, I have actually another suggestion.
If you want to step right where
We,
you go ahead, Joe.
We have, coming from Boston, we have a lot of roads and streets that I'm just thinking about and I don't know if this was something that somebody just thought of because of the same type of issue, but a lot of times you'll see at the beginning of the name Saint, so Saint Hobby Road, or Mount Hardy Road. So you'll see MT at the beginning, and you'll see Saint. So really, if you think about it, if I'm the post office and I see Saint Hovey Road, I know it's Hovey Road. If I just see Hovey Road, I know it's Hovey Road. And if I just see Hardy Road instead of Mount Hardy Road, I know it's the same thing. But for a dispatch, they're going to hear that word Mount Hardy first, and they're going to hear that Saint Hovey. They're going to hear that little ST and the little MT. And as you drive, I remember as I'm driving down the road, you see those a lot. I don't know if that was because of the same issue, because so many more roads got added in Boston, and so just another suggestion, another way of looking at it. That won't be a giant change. I mean, just adding a couple letters at the beginning of their road.
I think it's a good idea. I think we can ask that question.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a terrific idea. If I can add too, I think the pushback.
That was a triple.
I think the pushback would be from the liability concerns, and that's where this all comes from. Is that the town has been made aware of these conflicts. Again, a potential of dispatching an apparatus to the wrong location. We need to do something about it. It's a problem that's been brought to our attention.
Things in the way again.
So.
You think you're getting it?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
One other thing on the safety side, like John was saying, we just want to make sure you are clear. Hovey Road is also broken up into sections, which when we're looking at mutual aid pieces coming in, we've had an issue with Spring Road in the past. We try very hard to get it across to the mutual aid pieces, where they're going. Hovey Road is a hard road to give directions to, because you're coming up, you take a right on High Range, all of a sudden you're on Hovey with no indication. You come up to a stop sign, you take a left, you're on Pettingill. If you're coming from the airport, Pettingill all of a sudden becomes Harvey, once again, no indication. Then it ends at Webster, and you start up again at another intersection. So that's on a safety concern. I mean, ultimately, it's your decision, but we just want to bring forth all information that, we've had issues with same thing on Harvey Road as we did with Spring Road in the past.
So not to get too excited about my other suggestion, but that's another one, upper and lower. They go upper Hovey and lower Hovey in Boston. That's what they would do to break that up. So another thing.
Well, you get into upper Hovey and lower Hovey, it's just like, we had Anderson Lane and Anderson Circle. Same thing, we had confusion with those things.
The first word, though, that as you said, the first word is the key word, so that's.
But you can't have too many saints either. You can't have, and we have a St. Andrew's Way already. So again, if that cell phone call cuts out at Saint, which one are you sending it to?
If I may, Reed, do you know much about the? I guess it's too rhetorical. How much do you know about the Hardy and the Hovey families?
Not half as much as I know about the Reed and the Page and the Clark.
Well, here's where I was going with that, is if, also kind of along the same lines that Councilor Green was going, but if we know, let's say, in the Hovey family, if there was a veteran that achieved a certain rank, you could have a Sergeant Hovey Road, or something like that also. You could still honor the family, but change the name with a prefix like that.
Those were before sergeants and,
Well, they had sergeants in the Revolutionary War. It can't be that old.
I think we'll get suggestions from the streets. There's been no shortage of suggestions. So certainly, if there's old families on the streets, we'll take them.
Right. We had a young lady here that had a question or a comment.
I'm just representing Wire Belt Company, Nancy McGuire. I'm also a long-time resident of Londonderry. And our costs were going to be about $59,000, but we also have the added problem. We're just 300 feet from Harvey Road in Manchester. So for us, it's still kind of an issue because Harvey Road is going to be right the next block to us regardless if we change the name in Londonderry.
Yeah, you are close to that. I know exactly where you are.
Do you know, John, if Manchester is considering a street name change as well because of the same issue?
No, I don't know if they're considering it, but the issue is having duplicate names within the municipality. So it's perfectly acceptable for the names to change at the municipal border. Okay, so if it were If our recommended strategy went through, it would be Grenier Field up to the town line. Wyerville would be given a Grenier Field address, and then the next property over would be a Harvey address. But again, what we can do is leave Harvey Road in place. I get the sense that's the council.
Make sure you don't expand into Manchester, so you keep paying your taxes here, just so you know.
We do.
That's a joke, by the way. Sounds like the marching orders are pretty clear.
I think they're clear. We won't take up any more of your time. All right, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. And to the businesses, thank you for coming out and voicing your opinion.
Sorry for waiting.
Sorry for being so late.
Going on the rifle range.
Yeah. Look, he gets shot in the head.
Ooh, another zinger.
Already been shot.
I see you should have had
Well,
more
we're
staff
not
on.
trying to shoot you in the pocketbook, so consider it a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next on new business is tax abatement request from Bachman Manufacturer at Home Community. Let's see. I don't have that ordinance in front of me. Margot, do you have that one?
Yeah.
What's the tax abatement?
Yeah.
It's on page 17. Okay.
Yeah, I need a copy of it, though.
Yeah, 17.
All right,
Impact
right there.
Yeah.
All right, can I get, oh, I actually have that. That's the Riley one? Oh, okay.
It's just a letter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, did you,
I got it?
so,
Page 15.
15? Right here? That's a letter, yeah. So that's it, it's just a letter?
Yes.
That's it.
So what action do you need us to take? Just to approve it?
Sue, you have a recommendation?
Yeah, I need concurrence from the
So you just
council
need
to
a-
allow an abatement on these two mobile homes.
Oh, all right, yeah.
Why are we asking, I didn't read this, I'm sorry.
They're two
He just needs
dilapidated and
direction from the
abandoned
council.
property.
So just ask them to remove the homes, replace them with new, and forgive the past taxes.
Right.
Okay?
And, yeah, and the units that will be going in will be,
Just get them in by April 1st.
yeah, which is
Add
good
value
for the
to the
town, it adds value, right?
Exactly.
Okay. You speaking to this?
Just if you had any questions.
Oh.
Just need a
Dan Bouchard is the manager.
Oh, I thought it, oh.
So what they're saying is that
Yeah.
it's uncollectible, so
Right.
if we waive the taxes, they could put on a new unit.
Then they can tear those units down and put ones on there, they're gonna be more profitable for the town and for them.
Because they can't find the owner.
Because
Right.
currently, right now, we can't do anything because the town has liens on them for taxes.
Right.
We can
So
turn
it's
it-
kind of a holding pattern until you get rid of them.
And
Exactly.
So
if we
where's
do
the
this, we
ownership,
can turn it into tax-producing property.
where does the
Correct.
ownership lie right now?
I'm sorry?
Where does the ownership lie?
Town.
Did it come to the town yet, the ownership?
It hasn't come to the town yet, but there are liens on the property.
Right.
So until those liens are rectified, you can't do anything with these
Okay,
properties.
but if the liens are forgiven, does that property then come to the town?
No.
No, it
No,
just
it's-
means that they can move forward by tearing them down and then putting new units there that are tax generating.
There's no,
Okay, but why
really
wouldn't
no
we-
advantage to us. They're just pads. and
Okay,
they're
I was gonna say, why wouldn't we
community
take the land?
Why wouldn't we take the deed?
Yeah, there's no advantage, you're saying?
No, we would,
Not
if
really
we
in a
took,
mobile home
because
park.
they're mobile homes and they're dilapidated, there's other issues that we would have to deal with, park fees and that sort of thing.
It would be very beneficial to us, though, if you took them.
You'd be grateful, right?
Then we'd have
Yeah,
to
we're not in the
take them
business of
down,
being a
clear
landlord,
the
so-
property, make it
The lien's not
ready
on the
to be
land,
used
it's on
again.
the trailer, right?
Right.
That was my question, okay,
Yeah,
good.
it's just too, it's not the business we want to be in.
All right, so can we get a consensus? Are you okay with it?
I'm fine.
Take them out to the Musquash and shoot at 'em.
Okay, you okay with it? That's a yes. You?
Hey, if the newspaper's here, you got that one right. Tom Frieda said, take the ball out, shoot at it.
All right, Tom?
And that's the new range.
I'm good. We're getting real
John?
punchy now.
It's fine.
Okay, consensus is 5-0 to move forward with that, so granted.
Thank you.
All set, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Okay,
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
oh, we have one more ordinance.
Did I miss one?
Yeah, it's impact fee assessment on O'Reilly investment property.
Read it?
That would be great, thanks.
Order number 2011-17, an order relative to impact fee assessment upon Riley Investment Properties, first reading 9/19/11, adopted 9/19/11, whereas the town of Londonderry approved an ordinance which provides for the assessment, collection, and administration of impact fees, and whereas the state law allows the town council to abate assessments for good cause shown, and whereas the ordinance currently assesses a fee for certain improvements on Route 28 which have been constructed, however, revised assessment formula has not been finalized. Now, therefore, it be ordered by Londonderry Town Council that the traffic impact fee assessed to Riley Investment Properties, 124 and 126 Rockingham Road, is reduced from $33,408 to $9,919. So moved.
Motion?
Second?
Second. Okay, discussion? We have Andre here. Andre?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time to discuss this. The reason why this is before you is that a proposed gas station convenience store was proposed on the corner of Liberty Drive Extension and Route 28. And looking at such a site plan, a traffic study was submitted, reviewed, and ultimately the project was approved. And applying the impact fee to this through our impact fee formula for the Route 28 Eastern Corridor, recognize that I have it in my my memo that the impact fee system in that area is flawed, but it's really obsolete because some of the improvements that were proposed in our Route 28 East Corridor are being done by DOT, meaning that the roadway is going from a 2-lane highway to a 4-lane highway. The intersections at Auburn Drive and Liberty Drive Extension.
It's going to 4 lanes there?
Yes.
How far down are they going with it?
They're going about 200 to 400 feet past Liberty Drive Extension as you go towards Derry.
Wow.
And then it tapers back into 2 lanes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Even though there are more lanes in this particular area, there are more intersections that are along there, like the Stonehenge Route 28 intersection and the Season Lane intersection in Route 28, as well as this one took into consideration going up Auburn Road. Auburn and Wilson and Auburn and Londonderry Road are part of the impact fee structure. And those are the ones that we want to keep in place, but the roadway segment and the 2 intersections that are being approved by DOT are the ones that we're recommending that that are no longer needed, required. And therefore, until such time we're a more comprehensive update to the Route 28 corridor, we're recommending these interim steps as to reducing the impact, that would be assessed in the future to limited to Stonehenge, Route 28 and Stonehenge intersection, Route 28 and Seasons Lane intersection, Auburn Road in Wilson, and Auburn Road in Old Derry would be the impact fees that would be assessed in that area.
So this is going to change the impact fees going forward for all that area?
Correct. At least for the interim period till we can get a comprehensive study done in that area. We're working with, right now we're just going to work within the 1997 impact fee system.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions for Andre? No? I hear crickets. Andre, thank you.
You're welcome. And just so the board knows too, in the future, there will be other ones, another intersection that I'm going to come before you as to eliminate, and that would be the Route 128 Stonehenge Litchfield Road intersection. Obviously, we've collected impact fees for that to be improved. Well, that's been improved, therefore, we don't need to collect impact fees for that no longer. But I will formally present that to the board.
Okay.
Can I ask a non-subject related question?
To Andre?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As the Woodmont plan is crystallizing,
yes,
the head of Gilcrest and Pillsbury, right at that 3-way intersection there.
Yes.
Right outside of Sugar Plum.
Yes.
And that's continuing to be more and more exacerbated, I guess, in a failed manner, especially to the south.
Correct.
As part of that development, is there any consideration to reconstructing? I know there was some thought about moving Pillsbury down so it's opposite Pillsbury coming west to east. so it's a four-way intersection. That was one thought I had heard. Instead of going down Pillsbury, taking a right, and then going left on Pillsbury, that you move the Pillsbury piece that's between the orchards down, or moving it north to line up with the current Pillsbury. That was one thought I had heard. Is there another thought about a rotary in that?
Yeah, there's been a few alternatives thrown out there. A rotary, I should say, even moving back to when Sugar Plum was being proposed and the intersection was being considered at that time, there was some talk about at the planning board level that that meant the signal warrants. But given that's a scenic and cultural byway, and our feeling was that a stoplight would kind of take away from that feeling. That a rotary would be probably be a better alternative. But at the time, the approach volumes weren't all even. Therefore, the rotary wouldn't work as designed. But if the development were to be will come online as we intend, we think it will be, then that would be an alternative. And that would be one of the things.
Thanks to council for letting me ask this question. I know it's late and it's off topic. It just seemed like we're talking about
similar
impact fees for roads. But I'm just nervous that the time will quickly pass when we'll have any flexibility to fix that situation. If the master plan gets, this concrete starts to, no pun intended, starts to settle around that, firm up around that plan without addressing that. So I'm just hoping that it's in the works to address that as part of it.
And that's one of the reasons why in the PUD there's a requirement for a traffic analysis. It's a higher level traffic analysis, meaning that it looks at the whole picture and looks at what the potential master plan would generate, and therefore what are the impacts in the various roadway infrastructure. But at least allows us to take a look at what effect would that have on that particular intersection, and what are some of the alternatives to make sure that it can function in the future.
Good, thanks.
Question? Okay. Any other questions for Andre? All right. Seeing none, let's go back to the order. Thank you, Andre. All right, so all those in favor of order number 2011-17 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, abstain.
You have a conflict?
You only abstain if you have some sort of...
I do. Yeah, it's a conflict.
Okay, so motion is 4 to accept, chair votes affirmative, with Councilor Green abstaining. All set?
Yep.
Okay. We good over there, Margot?
Yep.
All right, cool.
Motion to accept minutes as presented.
Motion on the table?
Second.
With a motion and a second. Anybody see any changes? No. Okay, great. All those in favor of the minutes from 9/12/2012 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative. Motion passes 5-0. Meeting minutes are approved. Let me go back. And let's see.
Nice job of getting those minutes done so fast, Marjorie.
Liaison reports. We'll start with John.
I don't have any.
John, negative? Negative?
You just heard it.
You heard it, yeah? Okay. So, and there was nothing. We just had a meeting, what, a week ago? Okay, nothing on liaison reports. Town managers report.
Nothing to report tonight.
Oh, come on, that's it? That's what you're gonna give us? All right, I see how it is.
Big chance.
You could steamroll him right now. He's out in Milwaukee tipping cows. All right, so nothing for the town manager report. Thank you, Sue, for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Board committee appointments and reappointments. Nothing in front of us tonight. And I believe that's it.
Mr. Chairman, can I motion to adjourn, please?
I would entertain that motion with great happiness. Have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?